The main character's name is Toru Eben, and he is in an S-rank group, led by the hero Sain. Toru repels the monster's attack and asks a girl named Lisa if she is alright. She thanks him with a smile on her face. The guy shouts to his friends not to stop, because they are almost there. Toru shouts to Sain that he understood. They are childhood friends, and always support each other. Toru's friends ask him to talk. They always stuck together. They say he needs to leave the band. The main character is surprised and realizes that they have supported each other up to this point. The guy exclaims in surprise. Sain tells him that it's better for him to find out now. Later, the main character found out that he was just a hindrance to them. Toru asks if they are joking. He doesn't understand why they said it so suddenly. Sain asks Toru to understand him and says he doesn't want to see his best friend die. Toru is silent. Lisa says Sain is right. She says that if this continues, he will die sooner or later. The main character does not believe in this. He pays attention to the girl's hands. The guy realizes that this is not the ring he gave her. He pays attention to the rest of his friends. Nei and Sawara look at him in silence. Sain smiles. The main character realizes that all this time he was just entertaining them. He was betrayed by his best friend and slept with his fiancée. He doesn't understand why this happened. Toru wonders how long they've been cheating on him. Sain asks him if he understood everything and says it would be better if he stayed as far away from them as possible. The main character shouts at a former friend to shut up and hits him. He shouts that Sain knew that he and Lisa were supposed to get married, but decided to take her for himself anyway. Sain is just laughing at him. The guy tries to hit him again. But one of the girls throws him off the scene and urges him to stop. Nei asks what he's doing, and Sawara calls him pathetic. Suddenly, something small flies into the main character. It turns out to be a ring he gave her. He exclaims in surprise. Lisa screams that she never wanted to be with him, and asks him to stay away from them. They say goodbye to Toru. The main character is walking in the rain. He looks at the ring on his palm, and a smiling Lisa pops up in front of his eyes. He angrily throws the ring on the ground and can't catch his breath. Toru screams furiously, falling to his knees. He hits the ground with his fist. The image of the girl does not get out of his head. As soon as he imagines how he and Sain are spending time together, he starts to get angry. He sends them all away and cries. The main character lies on his back and asks himself what to do. He reveals his status. And he says to himself that his skills are low, and he has a lot of skills that are completely useless. However, he notices that he has a reduction in damage received, an increase in physical level, and an increase in the effectiveness of skills. Toru reads that the mysterious skills of the accumulation system are generally useless, and he does not know how to use them, but they are already of a high level. He realizes that if he had strong skills like Sain's, maybe all this wouldn't have happened. He remembers that he has the lowest level of the whole team and makes the assumption that he is probably a hindrance. Suddenly, the main character notices something nearby. It turns out to be a black demonic dog. He is rushing towards the Tora. Privately, the main character apologizes to the monster and says that he will have to take out all his anger on him. Toru cuts him in half. When he sheaths the blade, suddenly the mysterious skills of the system that were previously closed open. And the main character is notified that the cumulative experience will be increased 100 times, that his current level is 300, and also that the current race is not suitable for these parameters, and his body will be rebuilt. The main character does not understand what is happening and is very surprised. The system says that the body reconstruction has been completed, and now the main character's time is a draconian. When the transformation ends, there is a scorched earth around the main character. The last to arrive is a notification that the accumulation of experience has been damaged and recovery will take some time. The main character does not understand what kind of notification it is, and is surprised at the 300th level. He wonders why this happened and notices that the accumulation of experience has been damaged. Toru understands that the accumulation of experience was a passive skill, and it was activated only when all the accumulated experience reaches its limit. In this case, the skill breaks down, and all the accumulated experience is multiplied and transferred to it. Now he understands that everything fits together because he always tried the hardest in the group, but his level rose very slowly. The main character laughs loudly. He realizes with a smile on his face that now he just wants to travel the world. With level 300, he is now not afraid of anything, and he can do whatever his heart desires. He makes the assumption that it's time to heal the pain they caused him. The main character sits down and says that he should start by visiting a neighboring country. Armand. The border town of Livio. The main character walks through the streets of busy Armand and notices that there are even more people here than in the center of the country. Toru notices a sign with an inscription about the sale of servants. The guy remembers the betrayal of his former friends and realizes that he needs a faithful partner. Servants are bound by the bonds of a contract and cannot betray their master from the moment of purchase until death. Now he doesn't care even if his conscience torments him later, he just wants to be calm. The man in the hat greets the main character and asks how he can help. Toru explains that he needs a servant with whom he can go into battle. The man asks if he prefers a particular race. The guy tells him that he doesn't care. He says he can recommend lizard men for battles. The main character asks about the price. The man says that he is worth 30 million. The guy asks if he has anything else. He draws his attention to the elf and says that she has no combat experience, but she can perfectly brighten up his leisure time in the evenings, and if you teach her combat magic, she will be a great support for him. The main character asks how much it costs and gets a disappointing answer that it costs 25 million. He is silent. And the man asks about his budget. The main character explains to him that he has 1.5 million. He asks him to follow him and pulls back the curtain. The man says that most of the servants here are not worth more than 1 million. They are weak, ugly, sick, and untrained. But the man makes the assumption that he will choose someone for himself. Suddenly, the main character notices a girl. Yes, at first she looks at him with indifference. And then he screams loudly, startled by his level 300. The main character is surprised that she saw his level. He asks how much this girl is worth. The man says that it costs 10,000, and Toru wonders why it is so cheap. He replies that such a low price is due to the fact that she is very ill. The guy asks her what her name is. The girl is silent at first, but then introduces herself as Kaidi. He repeats her name and says it's beautiful. The guy expresses a desire to buy this child. The man puts a seal on it and informs him that the contract has been concluded. The guy urges her to follow him, and the girl obediently agrees. He notices that she doesn't walk well. The Toru put her on their back. Kaidi coughs. The guy asks her not to worry and asks if she's okay. The girl responds positively. The doctor understands that she has a rare disease peculiar only to beastmen. The hero is surprised that she is not human. The doctor says it's hard for him to say because she doesn't have distinctive features in the form of ears and tail, but she's definitely a beastman, since her pupils are large and dilated, and the bulge at the back resembles a tail. The main character realizes that if he is telling the truth, then her basic physical abilities must be at a high level. He asks him how it can be cured. The man says that the medicine is made from the dragon's heart, and there is no way to replace it. Already on the street, the girl wants to say something. Well, the main character tells her not to worry, and promises that she will recover soon. The girl feels awkward. Toru says it would be better for her to stay at home and rest until she recovers completely, and then he asks her if she thinks that he is a bad master and does not take care of his servants. Kaede shakes his head negatively. The doctor waves them off and tells him to come back when he has everything he needs for the medicine. The main character thanks him and calls him an old man. The man gets angry and says that he is only 30 years old. The guy has been wandering through this forest for 3 hours. Suddenly, he notices the monsters and tenses up, but they get scared of him and run away in fear. He wonders what is wrong with them in general and makes the assumption that they feel danger, relying on their instincts. Abruptly, the Tora notices something. He understands that it is a dragon. Usually, an entire army is sent to eliminate him. He runs towards him. The hero wonders if he can kill the dragon alone. An imaginary picture of his death appears before his eyes, and he gets scared. Toru notices that he is more than 10 meal tall, but suddenly, the main character remembers a new girlfriend. The guy with rage in his eyes realizes that this girl is waiting for him alive and shouts to the dragon, urging him to fight him. The monster attacks him, but he dodges, however his foot gets stuck in the ground. The dragon rushes at him, and he remembers his old friends. Toru hates them, but he will never become like them. He rushes at the dragon with a sword and cuts it down with one attack, and with it the mountain behind. The dragon's body falls next to him, as does the rock. The main character looks at this and is still surprised, realizing that this is exactly the power of the 300th level. Sometime later, in the house, the main character gives the girl medicine and tells her to drink it, because she should feel better. Kaidi asks if he made this medicine for her. The guy explains to her that he got everything he needed and asks the old man to make it. He wonders if she will be able to take the medicine herself. The girl responds positively and drinks it. She blushes. And then he goes to bed. The main character notices that she is feeling a little better and comes to the conclusion that the medicine is working. He looks at his hand, and he realizes that now he has more strength than he could ever have imagined. Now he needs to fight carefully. The guy says he never thought he would care about such things. The next morning, the main character wakes up yawning. He notices a girl next to him and asks her why she sleeps here. Toru goes downstairs and puts the meat on the cook's table. He wants the cook to cook it for him for payment. The man is surprised by the unusual meat and says it looks like pork, but he is not sure. He asks what it is. The guy explains to him that this is the meat of a red dragon. The man is very surprised, but he cooks food. He presents him with a dragon steak and cutlets made from it. Toru tastes the food and is amazed at how delicious it is. The guy never thought that he would ever be able to taste dragon meat. The girl asks him what it is. Toru explains to her that this is her breakfast, dragon cutlets. Kaidi tastes the food and starts eating quickly, as it is delicious. The main character watches her, and then says that they need to do something with her clothes. They go shopping and choose clothes for the girl. The hero asks her if she's sure she doesn't want to use the staff. The girl asks him to buy her what she wants. Toru is doubtful. Kaidi wants to take the other two fans as weapons, but they are too big for her small hands. However, he remembers that she is a beastman, and he would not be surprised if she could easily learn how to use them. They are walking through the market. The main character notices that Kaidi is looking at the cake. He thinks about his past with Lisa. The guy asks the girl if she wants something. She answers in the negative, but he asks her not to be shy. The girl says she wants something. He's glad to hear it. Kaidi is eating a cake. Toru hands her the package and tells her to hold it, and he did as she asked. The girl thanks him and calls him master. He is silent at first, and then asks her to stop calling him that. The girl resists him and says that he is her master. She turns to him again, and the main character notices that she is crying. Kaede is afraid that he doesn't like annoying servants and makes the assumption that he wants to get rid of her. The guy pats her on the head and asks what she's talking about. Toru explains to her that he is not going to get rid of her and wants her to be with him for the rest of his life. He says he might not be a good master, but he needs her. The guy smiles and says he's counting on her. The girl grabs his hand. She says he is the best gentleman of all, and she will do anything for him. Kaidi asks him to let her stay with him forever. The guy says he was embarrassed to hear that. The girl apologizes. He unexpectedly suggests that she shorten her bangs. She says that if she had scissors, she could do it herself. Suddenly, the main character feels something. The guy is surprised and exclaims without understanding anything. The lock on another hidden skill breaks and he feels the power. The main character cannot believe what is happening. The girl is also surprised. The aura around him scared Kaidi. Several windows of the system pop up in front of the Toru at once. The skills of accumulating magic, increasing the effectiveness of skills, accumulating magic and accumulating experience have been damaged and their recovery will take time and the entire experience will be increased 100 times. The next thing is that the maximum level for skills has been exceeded and a new maximum has been set. He also gained the skills of doubling all experience and borrowing magic. The guy doesn't understand why his skill worked again and gave him experience. He can't even imagine how strong he's become now. The aura around him scared Kaidi. He exclaims and removes it. And then he helps her up and apologizes to her for scaring her. He explains to her that his skills have given him more strength again. The hero asks her if she is safe. She responds positively and exclaims enthusiastically that her master is amazing. He gets confused and asks if she really thinks that. She responds positively. He looks at the status and his skills, wondering at the 50th level. He doesn't understand why the level has increased so much, because it has always been around 10. He makes the assumption that his limit on the level has also increased. Toru notices 2 more unused accumulation series skills, and imagines what will happen when they activate. The girl asks if everything is okay with him. He responds positively and says that he is just a little surprised. He asks her what she wants. Kaidi is embarrassed and says that it's nothing. The guy urges her not to be shy. The girl says she wouldn't mind soap. The guy asks again in surprise. Already at the house, Kaidi asks Toru if he is sure that swimming together is a good idea. The guy asks her if she wants to say that he will not be able to restrain himself after seeing her. The girl blushes. She changes into a towel. He says he has to wash her hair. Kaidi is shy and says that he does not want the master to do such things. The guy gets a little angry and tells her to sit down because it's an order. The girl agrees, and the guy exclaims joyfully. He stares at her back, but he pulls himself together and starts washing her hair. Toru notices the tail at the bottom and asks the girl who she is. She says she's a fox. Toru thinks to himself that he has never seen her look in person and remembers that according to rumors they usually have golden fur. Suddenly, his hands shift and they both scream in surprise. The guy leaves, apologizing, but the girl is shy. She says that she is fine and if her master wants it, then she agrees. The guy looks at her, and then he gives her a click. She doesn't understand his actions, and he's gone. Leaving with a smile on his face, he says that when she grows up a little, he will think about it. The girl blushes prettily, calling him master. The girl cuts her hair. The main character watches this and says that it suits her better. She says it was too clumsy. Toru notices that she missed a little, but the girl explains to him that these are her ears. He is surprised that she also has a pair of human ears. The girl says that according to the stories, the god who created the beastmen loved their ears very much, but he also liked human ears. He thought that both options were good and did not know what to do, and then it occurred to him to combine them. The main character says that God has very strange tastes. The girl agrees with him. They clean up her cropped hair. Kaidi turns to Thor with a smile on his face and, smiling, says that today was a wonderful day. The guy says that since she liked it, they can make tomorrow even better. The girl agrees with him and says that she always wants to be with him. The next morning, the main character is worried. Kaidi asks him what's wrong. He replies that the old man from the gun shop is very angry with him and makes him pay for the repair of all the weapons. The girl wonders what he did. Toru takes out a broken sword from its scabbard and explains to her that he cleaned it yesterday and accidentally broke it. He decided to go to the gun shop to buy himself a new one. The blacksmith gave him the strongest sword he has. The main character calls it not bad and suggests checking it out. When he swings his sword, windows fly out in the building, and the sword is broken again. The blacksmith exclaims questioningly when they notice that all the weapons in his shop are broken. The main character finishes his story, and Kaidi is silent at first. She then says that she knows where to get a great weapon for him. They come to the site of the ruins. The girl says that there is a temple of sacred weapons here. The guy makes the assumption that she is joking. Not even all heroes are allowed to wield sacred weapons. Only a select few can receive the sacred weapon. And he doesn't think he can get at least one. Kaidi is confident that her master will succeed. The guy says it's spacious here. The girl explains to him that the temple was built in the era of glorification of the gods. To get a weapon, you need to pass two tests. The first is to open the door, and the second is to take the gun out of the pedestal. The guy asks her how she knows all this. She says she knew someone who told her about it. They have arrived, and the first test begins. The main character notices that the big door does not have a handle and does not understand how to open it for her. He touches the surface, and the gate opens. The girl congratulates him on passing the first part, and they go ahead. The guy is surprised that this is the sacred weapon. He says there's only a one-handed sword here. The girl asks if he needs a two-handed weapon and explains that the sacred weapon can change its size and shape at the request of the owner. The guy says that in this case he can try. The hero makes every effort to pull out the sword. He pulls out his sword, falling backwards. The girl smiles happily and congratulates him. Tell Toru that it's all thanks to her, because if she hadn't told him about the temple, he would never have received a weapon. She says he would have come here anyway in the end because he was chosen for the sacred weapon. The guy says she praises him too much. He remembers that in the heroes group he never received praise, and even Lisa never did that. The girl says that now they can go on adventures together. The guy agrees with her. And they are coming from the temple. Toru suggests that the girl, as soon as they come to the city, register them as a group of adventurers and mark this moment properly. The girl agrees. Sain and Lisa are having fun. The girl asks him to stop, because she can't take it anymore. The guy is surprised that she can't do it anymore and ends up. He remembers Toru's face and calls it priceless. He was betrayed by the woman he loved, who had already proposed. Sain calls him an idiot. Lisa was his before him, and he didn't understand anything. However, Nei and Sawara were in love with him. He calls Sawara poor because she betrayed her beloved like that without telling him anything. In fact, Lisa, Nei, and Sawara had no feelings for him. It's just that he has the unique skill, demonic eye of temptation. He uses his girls to be hypnotized. He has the power to force any action on the opposite sex. He was always perfect in every sense, but Nei, Lisa, and Sawara chose Toru for some reason. Sain was very jealous of him, but at some point he received an ability that allowed him to correct this mistake. Lisa, who rejected him first, is now with him. Sain enjoyed the days when they betrayed the Toru right under his nose. He remembers it as a pleasant time. After Thor's departure, he felt better, and soon he is going to defeat the Demon Lord. The Demon Lord, which is akin to a catastrophe, is reborn once every 100 years. He appears from demons, but there is a small chance that he will appear in a human body. Sain believes that he needs to find a sacred weapon in order to kill the Demon Lord. There is a lot of work to do, but in the end he will have fame and money, and if he is lucky, he will be able to assemble a harem of princesses. It's going to be a better life. After a while, the guy exclaims in surprise and cannot believe that the dragon was killed. The man apologizes to him for coming such a long way. The guy refuses and says that he is just very surprised. Sain is interested in who killed the dragon. The man says he doesn't know and they just found his decapitated bodies already. Outside, one of the girls notices that Sain is very angry. The guy denies it. Don't suggest that you put off dealing with the dragon and go have fun at the hotel. Sain asks her to shut up. Lisa wonders who could have killed the dragon and realizes that it couldn't have been an ordinary adventurer. Sain smiles at them and tells them that the main thing is that the city is safe, and they can continue their journey. After a while, the guy exclaims again, surprised that there is no sacred weapon. He doesn't understand where it's gone. The girl asks him to calm down. He pushes the girl and screams at her not to touch him or he will kill her. She apologizes. The guy reflects that with the departure of Toru, the group's affairs have gone from bad to worse and makes the assumption that it's all his fault. Unexpectedly, he assumes that this is all his doing but cannot believe it and concludes that it is clearly someone stronger than him. He doesn't know anyone who could bring down a red dragon. He assumes that the one who killed him and the one who took the sacred weapon are the same person. Sain thinks that if he finds out who it is, he will immediately kill him. The guy says that the plans have changed. They go to Luntat's dungeon. He makes an assumption that they will succeed. The man they asked the question to asks them again and says that it was last here a month ago. Sain and the others are surprised. The guy explains to him that he is asking for his location. The man says they don't have such a thing and suggests they just go ahead and see for themselves. The guy doesn't understand what he's talking about. Sain is at a loss and sits on his knees. He is completely desperate and does not understand what is happening. A month ago in Luntata, Kaidi admires the fact that she received an adventurer's card. The main character urges her not to lose the card because now it is her identity card. The girl agrees. Toru thinks to himself that his former group was S rank, but now, after leaving it, he has become B rank. The guy says this place reeks of alcohol. The girl says it serves alcohol. Toru says that it is equipped for recreation. Kaidi is surprised and tells him that he has her and he doesn't need to go there. The guy does not understand what she is talking about and continues on his way. The girl says she's heard about the dungeon here. The main character agrees with her and says that as far as he knows, it was here before the city appeared. He suggests she go there tomorrow. It's getting dark, and the girl asks him if he learns anything about them. He answers and says that he knows absolutely nothing, so this will be his first experience. Toru says that there are 2 reasons why adventurers go there. The first is to collect materials from slain monsters and search for treasures. The second is to reach the core of the dungeon in its very depths. He explains to the girl that the core is a very valuable and rare resource from which you can get a lot of valuable things, including unique items and skills. Kaede says she understood him. He says that while she is inexperienced, they will just walk around the first floor. The girl obeys him. They are standing at the entrance to the dungeon. The main character calls them to come inside. The girl agrees. Already inside the dungeon, Kaidi uses an air knife to kill monsters. Toru watches this from the sidelines and thinks to himself that he knew she could use magic, but didn't think it was so good. The girl says that she has raised the level to the 15th. The guy exclaims in surprise. He says they only started an hour ago. He doesn't understand how she did it. Kaidi, make the assumption that it's because he's her master. The main character doesn't believe it at first. The hero then thinks that the doubling of all experience extends to her. The girl exclaims joyfully, rejoicing that she has become stronger thanks to her master. The guy laughs nervously. On the third floor, a girl is fighting against two giants. She uses a blizzard of flowers to hit them. The monsters are frozen by a spell, and the girl breaks them into pieces with her fan. The main character tells her that she has destroyed all the enemies on this floor. The girl believes that the 30th level is not enough to meet his expectations. She wants to become stronger. Toru asks her if she is tired and says that they have collected enough materials and items and therefore urges her to go home. The girl obeys and says that's really enough for today. Suddenly she notices something on the floor and wonders. The guy says it looks like garbage. Suddenly, he realizes that this is a storage of rare items and its capacity is 100 items. Kaidi asks if it can store objects of any shape and size. The guy agrees and says that he recognized these magic circles. The girl suggests that he continue. He refuses. The guy reads that they need water and food. If they don't come back, they will starve to death. The girl apologizes. Toru explains to her that there is no need to hurry, and they will still have time to raise her level. The girl is smiling. The bag containing the item evaporates, plunging into the storage. She exclaims in surprise. The guy suggests that she go to rest now. Already on the street after a while, the girl says that the meat is simply incomparable. The guy tells her to eat as much as she wants. She thanks him. Toru explains to her that everyone does not thank him. He thinks to himself that they have worked 120,000 coins today and she tried very hard for the first time. Suddenly, the girl asks him why he is not eating. Kaidi says that won't do and that he ordered this meal for the money they got in the dungeon. The girl pours him a portion and hands it to him. She says that food tastes better if you share it with someone and suggests eating together. Thor thanks her, smiling. He says it's time for them to go back. They go home, and the main character reflects to himself that before that he had a bad and very difficult life. But when he met Kaidi, it got better. He believes that if this continues, the void will soon disappear. Already in the morning, Kaidi's cry will be Toru. He does not understand what is happening and looks at the girl, surprised. In front of him is an adult Kaidi. She says that when she woke up and began to look like this, she did not understand what to do. Suddenly, the girl became a girl. Toru is asked by her if she is really Kaidi. She responds positively. The main character asks what happened to her body. Kaidi explains to him that she has already woken up like this. The guy is trying to think about the situation. Yesterday she was a little girl, and the next day she became a beautiful girl. He wonders about what happened. The girl assumes that this is because the level is rising too fast. The guy doesn't understand what she's talking about. Kaidi explains that children, when they reach the 20th level, grow up, and their body increases, and their characteristics increase. The main character believes that increasing body and strength is not so impossible, especially considering that even his race has changed after a certain level. He thinks to himself that he could not have imagined that she would become such an adult beauty. Now the main character has no idea how to think of her as a child. The guy asks why she is still without clothes and asks her to put something on. Kaidi shows the torn clothes. Toru gives her his clothes. The girl refuses. They say that these are his clothes. The guy asks her what she is not satisfied with. She says it's the clothes that smell like him. Toru says that if she doesn't want to, then they will find something else. But the girl puts on a shirt and says that it is a little too big for her. The main character says that it suits her just fine and urges her to put on her pants too. The girl agrees. Already on the street, they buy her new clothes. Kaidi asks the main character what she looks like. He smiles and says it's great. The girl laughs. He thinks to himself that her body has grown, but at heart, she is still a child. Toru urges her to see if her weapon suits her. The girl waves her fan and says that everything is fine. The main character says that she may get hurt if she shakes her name like that, and that now she can use 2 magic attacks at a time. When they walk down the street, everyone looks at Kaidi. They don't understand where such a beautiful girl comes from in the city. Someone says that she is very nice, and someone that he wants the same servant. The main character notices a bunch of compliments about Kaidi's beauty, and he gets disgusted by their envy. The girl says that today she will earn even more money. The guy tells her not to think about money today. He says that they still have money left from killing the dragon, and today it's better to focus on raising the level, that's why he bought them enough supplies. The girl is very happy and encourages him to have fun today. Already in the dungeon, a crowd of skeletons is attacking. A girl kills a crowd of skeletons with an air blast. Skeletons, broken into pieces, fall around the girl who has activated a circle of magic around herself. She is happy that she has succeeded. Toru agrees and says that he also yawns. Her current level is the 50th, and the level required to pass the 4th floor is only the 15th. She kills them so easily that Toru already begins to fall asleep. The girl asks him if he is tired. He answers in the negative and says that he just didn't get enough sleep. Kaidi smiles and waves her fan. She took out the trash. She lays the carpet and sits on her knees, slapping her legs. The main character blushes and says that nothing terrible will happen if he gets some rest. The girl agrees with him. The guy starts to fall asleep, thinking to himself about how good she smells, and that he's going to fall asleep now. Toru wakes up and thanks the girl for letting him take a nap. She's happy to help. Toru notices a bunch of skeletons nearby. He asks what happened here. Kaede explains to him that they tried to attack them while he was sleeping, and she just killed them. The main character is surprised that she killed them without taking a step. She asks him not to move, because she's going to shake him off. He thanks her, and thinks to himself that this is very kind of her. The main character notices a feeling of warmth, and thinks that he has turned on the sage or god mode. He asks the girl about her skills. The hero says that he just doesn't know anything about them right now, but if she doesn't want to show anything, then there's nothing wrong with that, and that's her right. The girl says that she is his property and will be only too happy to show it. He sees her status and skills. He thinks that she must have a skill that all magicians would like. He assumes that of all her skills, power amplification is the one. Toru looks at her and thinks that she has every chance to become a great expert in this matter. The guy says that they are done with everything here and offer to continue. And then he asks if she's sure she wants to go even lower. The girl responds positively and says that as long as he doesn't mind, she wants to. On the 10th floor, Kaede uses a wind slash to defeat enemies. The main character says that she is good at magic. The girl is happy and says that due to the increase in her level, her magic power is growing faster than she has time to understand its power. Toru tells her that if she needs help, she should tell him. Kaede agrees. She's using an air bullet. The guy thinks the goblin riders are pretty strong opponents. He has no compassion for them, but he feels sorry for them. On the 20th floor, they make a halt and light a bonfire. The guy hands her a bowl of food. She thanks me. She apologizes because it should be her job as a servant. He tells her not to worry because everything is fine. Toru asks Kaidi what her level is. The girl says she's at 150. The guy is surprised that she has pulled herself up to 100 levels. Kaidi says that the food is very tasty and that the gentleman cooks well. Ask Thor if it's true and he wouldn't think so himself. The guy asks her how to use magic. The girl does not understand the question at first, but then explains. The most important thing is to present something. Magic consists of 3 components: state, spell, and imagination. If he knows the spell, he can just use different variations of it, but even if you don't know. The guy understands her and burns that he can just imagine, for example, the fire that burns in his hand. The fire is really catching fire. He is happy that he has succeeded and says that it is very difficult. Kaidi says he just needs more practice. The guy would like to learn magic too, and as soon as possible. He says the girl is right and he needs to train harder. There are many different monsters on the 29th floor. The main character says that he has never fought orc wars, cursed skeletons, and minotaurs. He asks Kaede to take care of himself. The girl is dodging and uses an ice cage to stop them. All the monsters are completely frozen. They turn to the Torah and ask what he said. He asks her to forget and thinks to himself that she already has level 200, and he wonders why he's worried about her anyway. On the 30th floor, the main character does not feel the presence of enemies. He asks the girl to be careful. They go forward and see the core in front of them. They realize that they have reached the end and are happy that they managed to pass the dungeon. Kaidi asks him to touch the core. Toru says he didn't do anything and urges her to touch her better. The girl says that it was only thanks to him that she was able to go so far. So she asks him to do it. The main character agrees and thanks her. He has dreamed of going through at least one dungeon since he was a child, and he can't wait to find out what kind of reward awaits him. The main character wakes up and sees Kaidi in front of him. She's calling him. He doesn't understand what happened. The girl asks to look it up. The guy realizes that the dungeon has disappeared and they are now at the very bottom of the hole that is formed. The main character wonders if it disappeared after the cleanup and does not understand how this is possible. The girl asks him when he managed to put on the ring. He looks at his hand and is surprised by the ring that appeared. He makes the assumption that this is a reward for cleaning. Kaidi notices a ring on her hand too. The windows of the system pop up unexpectedly. Windows congratulates them on completing the Luntata dungeon and asks them to collect the reward. This is their first pass, and their reward is a 2-piece disguise ring. The main character is surprised by the disguise ring. The girl applies the assessment skill on the ring and says that it looks like the ring reveals the characteristics of the owner, and he also has his own levels. The first level is hiding all characteristics, copying someone's characteristics, hiding some. Toru thinks to himself that this high-level item will be quite useful. The guy wonders how they can get out of here. The girl suggests that you can try to jump over. Toru grabs the girl and picks her up. He asks her to hold on tight. She blushes and exclaims in surprise. The main character jumps forward. The girl screams that he will not be able to jump over, but the tourists are pushed off the walls. He calmly climbs to the surface. He asks her how she is. Kaidi says she's okay. Toru says that fortunately it's already midnight, but you still need to leave here as soon as possible. The girl completely agrees with him. It's night outside, 2 days after they left Luntata. Their way lay to the city of Einarch. Although they went there without a purpose, they have something to do. Kaidi notices something ahead and points it out. They are going to visit the ruins. Kaide and Toru are going to inspect them. They belonged to a more advanced civilization, and its creators were from a higher race. The reasons for their decline are still unknown, but nevertheless the ruins remain intact. They attract many people very much. The main character and Kaidi also couldn't get past them on their journey. They managed to taste the local food and had fun. A guy and a girl are sitting near the river. Kaide asks him about the name of their group. Toru thinks first. And then he suggests the name, Group of Travelers. The girl says that she sounds like she's not just for the two of them. The guy agrees and says that it suits them much better because in the future the number of participants may increase. Kaidi doesn't argue and agrees with a smile on his face. The main character says that he wants to enjoy the journey and see the whole world. Suddenly, he asks the girl how she became a servant. The girl is about to answer, but suddenly she hears a sound. She points ahead and asks what's there. A carriage rides in the distance, which is being attacked by robbers. The main character wants to help them. The girl obeys him. They are rushing to help. One of the robbers shouts to those inside to stop the carriage and in that case stay alive. He says they just want to have a little fun with them. Suddenly, Toru appears next to the robber. He throws him off his horse. One of the robbers orders everyone to stop, and the other asks who he is. The men want to kill him, but the main character exhales a spell. Bandits fall and cannot get up. Toru assumes that he overdid it. Behind him, archers aim at the main character, who do not understand who he is. One of them shoots an arrow. But Kaidi reflects it. She attacks them sharply, knocking them out, and tells them not to forget about her. The guy says their levels are about 10, and calls them weaklings. The girl asks him if he is alright. A girl gets out of the carriage and says she doesn't know who they are, but wants to sincerely thank them. Kaede is surprised. The guy blushes. The stranger wants to introduce herself, and says that she is Maranthy, the daughter of Count Roth. Maranthy thank them for saving her. Toru also introduces himself and says that he is an adventurer, and then points at Kaida, introduces her and says that she is his maid. The girl is happy and asks if his name is Toru. She takes his hands and asks if they would like to drive with her to the estate, because she wants to thank them. Maranthe pushes their carriage in despite Thor's resistance. Already in the carriage, she asks where they are going. The guy explains to her that they want to go to Einarch for now. Marianta is happy and says that their estate is located there and if they want, they can stay there for the night. The main character refuses and says that this is too much. The girl does not insist. The guy notices another girl next to him. She is silent. Toru turns to Kaida and asks her what she can say. She says she will follow him. They're looking out the window. Marianta is glad that the city of Einarch is already visible. So that's what Einarch is like. They come to the girl's estate, and she is hospitable to them. The butler says he is glad to see the lady back. Maranthy turns to him and asks if his father is here. A maid approaches the heroes and says that she was initiated into what happened. The girl introduces herself as Ulara, Mrs. Marianta's personal maid. She asks them to come with her to show them their rooms. She introduces Thor to his room and asks him to make himself comfortable. The guy is surprised, and, noticing the soft bed, he hurries to plop down on it. Maranthy, who has been here all this time, giggles and says that it is very interesting to watch him. The main character blushes in embarrassment. The girl says she wanted to show them the city, but sees that he wants to relax. Toru says he planned it anyway. They are walking around the city. Maranthy and Kaidi climbed into the statue. Toru and Ulara are watching them from the side. The main character asks that Maranthy is the daughter of a local count and is surprised that the girl is alone to protect her. Ulara explains to him that Mrs. Marianta is adored by the residents and she alone will be enough. The guy is surprised that she is in her words. The girl says that she used to be an S-rank adventurer. Mariantha turns to her new friend and says that delicious sweets are sold in that shop. Kaidi is surprised and asks the main character for permission. He agrees without delay. The hero gives her money. He thinks to himself that they have become friends. The girl thanks the main character. Toru thinks to himself that he was actually saving money for her, and if she so desires, he will release her. But he still wants to fill the void that has appeared in his heart. Every time he thinks about what happened, it becomes excruciatingly painful for him, but over time, he will forget about everything and live in peace. Then he will not need a servant. They are surprised by the huge statue. Maranthy says it depicts her father when he was still young. The residents and she did a good job, and the father was very embarrassed. The guy says the statue is beautiful. Suddenly, the statue begins to shake. The girl doesn't understand what it is. It doesn't look like an earthquake. The statue breaks abruptly, and tentacles break out of it. They grab people, among whom Marianta turns out to be. Toru screams her name. The main character exclaims, and she's angry because she fell into the abyss. The guy turns to other people. One woman screams about her grandfather, the boy next to him is calling his mother, and the man a little further away is talking about his daughter. Toru realizes that other townspeople have also been kidnapped. Ulara says that she is going to get her mistress. The guy calls Kaidi, and she immediately understands what he's talking about. He shouts to Ulara to wait because they are going with her. The girl shouts that they are guests and should not interfere in the affairs of the city. He tells her that she cannot cope with the search alone, especially since he says that they are not some weaklings. The girl agrees. The three of them jump inside. Kaidi conjures a fall mitigation, and then a ball of light. Inside they see catacombs, and the guy wonders what it is. Ulara explains to them that the city is built on underground ruins. The guy says it's a maze, and this is bad. Kaidi draws his attention to the fact that there is slime everywhere. Ulara assumes that this is from the monster who kidnapped the lady. They decide that if they follow the trail, they will find her. The main character says that he sings from the front, Kaidi will take the center, and the rear will be on the Ular. The girls agree with him. The guy urges them to move on. They're fighting off monsters. The guy is surprised at how deep this place is. Ulara says that she has been here more than once, but only reached the 4th floor. She has not gone deeper, so she does not know the answer to his question. The main character asks Kaidi to smell Marianta. The girl points ahead and says it looks like he's coming from there. Suddenly, a monster comes behind the main character and is going to attack him. However, his head is pierced by a weapon. Ulara asks him if he is whole. He agrees and thanks her. He says she is well trained and asks what her profession is. The girl says she's a murderer. Toru realizes that she could have dealt with those robbers on her own. Kaidi screams that the smell is getting closer, and they are almost there. All three of them are standing near the gate. A crowd comes out to meet them. Some of them shout that they would never have thought that someone would be able to go so far. A man calls people stupid. One of them notices that there are women there and offers them his love. The other man shouts that they should have fun. The main character notices 2 horns and concludes that they are demons. Kaidi says he will clear the way for him. She uses an ice wall. The demons realize that she has separated them. Be ready, and Tora praises Kaidi. The girl asks him to leave the demons on them. Ulara asks him to save her mistress. The main character understands them and strives forward. The demons try to kill him and attack, but the main character shouts for them to get out of his way. The hero kills them. He's breaking down the gate. And he sees the monster and all the hostages in front of him. The demon says that the food came by itself and he was just hungry. The guy asks if it's all his doing. He responds positively, and the main character asks what he is trying to achieve and why he attacked the city. The man says it's pointless to answer his question, but he's a kind guy and wants to tell him a little story. The demon snaps his fingers, and the tentacles wrap around the main character. The demon says that in fact this city is connected to others like it by this dungeon, and through them you can easily destroy this country. But first they needed the ground for war, so they stole something precious from their beloved lord. Now Toru understands why he kidnapped Maranthy. The man confirms his guess. He says that as long as he has the girl, he can control the situation. Toru is angry. The demon laughs and says that his face reflects malice or a desire to kill. He can't figure it out exactly, but he says he's going to kill him anyway. The defender of the city. The main character is easily freed from the tentacles. The demon doesn't understand what's going on. The guy goes to him. The man is scared and tries to attack him. It's not working out. He says that if he gets any closer, he'll grind him to dust. The main character encourages him to try it. The demon calls him funny and orders him to die. He uses a chain explosion, and he laughs until he notices an absolutely whole main character. The guy asks if he is happy with the result, and he says that it is impossible to damage him. The demon calls him a monster. And once again he tries to use a chain explosion, but the main character keeps walking without getting a scratch. The men are panicking very much and do not understand what is happening. He believes that this is impossible and makes the assumption that he is a hero. Toru strikes with a sword. He cuts him in half, as well as the monster from behind. The main character responds negatively and says that he is not a hero, but an ordinary warrior. Maranthy is slowly waking up. Ulara says she can't move abruptly right now. The girl asks what's going on. The memories don't immediately pop into her head. She looks at the hole in the ground and remembers that something dragged her down. The people around are glad that Maranthy has woken up. Some people praise the gods. The girls turn around and see Toru with Kaidi. The main character is happy that she has woken up. Kaidi is also glad to see her again. The girl asks them what happened. The guy says that the demons decided to attack the city through the underground ruins beneath it. The main character says that to some extent they succeeded, because everything ended well, but some still suffered. Maranthy realizes what happened, and asks who saved everyone, and then assumes that it was the father. Ulara says that she and Mr. Toru and Kaide saved everyone. The girl is surprised by this. Ulara says that without them she would not have been able to save the lady and thanks them. The guy is embarrassed and says that he would not leave those who helped him in trouble. One of the people asks if he saved their mistress. Another person says that these people defeated the demons. The crowd offers to thank them. Many people thank them. The main character feels awkward. Unexpectedly, Maranthy hugs him, thereby embarrassing him. She also thanks him for saving all the people. The main character agrees, but an angry Kaide asks Maranthy what she allows herself. The girl apologizes sheepishly. The main character thinks to himself that they are still more than they seem. At the count's estate, father and daughter embrace. Kaidi and Toru are watching from the sidelines. The girl praises him and says that he killed one of the generals of the demon lord. The guy asks her again and says that he did not quite understand the girl. Kaidi explains that although he is the weakest, he is still the general of the demon lord. The main character thinks about himself about how strong the demon lord himself is. The lord and his daughter look at Kaidi and Toru. The man says that he saved her daughter, just like the first time, and thank him. The main character is embarrassed, and says that if she is safe, then everything is fine. The girl says that Thor needs to be well thanked, otherwise she will get angry. The lord says that he will not get off with one thank you, and asks her who she takes him for. He thinks about it and says that he does not know what Thor would like or might need. Ulara asks him for permission to express her opinion. She whispers something in his ear. The lord is surprised, and the Torah is sold with a question. The man says that he killed the general of the demon lord. The main character is not quite sure about this. The man says that this all radically changes the case, and asks if Toru was heading to the capital before coming here. The guy responds positively. Lord says it's great, and he will definitely send the letter. The guy doesn't understand what he's talking about. Ulara whispers something in Maranthy's ear. And she starts to smile. The Lord says that he can stay with them as long as he wants, and that he can ask his daughter to give them another tour. The guy thanks him uncertainly. They have dinner in the evening. Kaidi says that all the food is very tasty. The main character notices that she is dirty again and helps her dry off. The girl blushes and thanks him. He looks at her and thinks that outwardly she is already grown up, but in her soul she has remained a child. You want to make her happy. The girl opposite asks what his plans are for tomorrow. The main character says that he wants to explore that dungeon. Maranthy asks the reason for this. He says that he is an adventurer, and he likes it. As far as he understood, no one went to it. This means that there may be untold riches there, and the more he thinks about it, the more he wants to go there. The girl says it would be better not to ask about it, and then he says he will go with them. Ulara is trying to say something, but Ulara will protect them. Kaidi says that she is against it and asks what will happen if something happens to her again. The guy tells her that he knows about it. But she thinks to herself that the dungeon does not belong to her father. Maranthy tells Kaida that she does not want to interfere with her, but only to be her friend. The girl blushes and is surprised. She says that in that case, you will have to take her with you. The main character says that in this case, she will protect her with Ulara, and he will go ahead and in case of any danger, they must immediately leave. The girls agree with him. Kaidi and Toru are waiting for the others at the exit. The girl apologizes for waiting, and he says they're ready. Maranthy put on her armor. The main character asks why she is wearing such an outfit. The girl explains that she told her father about it yesterday and he gave it to her. Toru apologizes and says that she will soon get exhausted in them and will have to be carried. The girl says that in this case she will go and change her outfit. After a while, Maranthy comes out in a beautiful outfit. She asks if it's better this way. He responds positively. Already in the dungeon itself, the girl says that the first 2 floors have been explored, so they will go deeper. However, she says they should know something. The main character listens to her attentively. Maranthy says there are quite strong monsters in one place, so she does not recommend exploring this part. The main character thinks to himself that if he wants to go through it completely, then he will still have to go there. The guy says that he will explore it himself, but for the sake of Maranthy's safety, they will stay here. The girl says that she can also be useful in battle, but the main character reminds her of her father's words. Maranthy agrees. They walk forward, and the girl asks him what they called their group. The guy says they called their group the traveling group. The girl giggles and says it suits him. The guy asks if it's true. Kaidi tells him that there are monsters ahead. The guy asks her if she can rate them. Kaidi includes an assessment skill, and he says that monsters look like mushrooms, and there are a lot of them. The guy understood her and urges her to move on. They see the overgrown passage and now understand everything. Toru notices a mouse under his feet. He sees her touching mushrooms and dying. Kaede realizes that they are also poisonous. Maranthy urges him not to go any further. The guy orders them to wait and says he'll figure it out on his own. Kaede is afraid for him, but Toru pats her on the head and says that his level is higher than theirs, and even more so the medicine is with him. The girl asks him to come back soon. Maranthy hugs his hand and asks him to be careful. The guy says he'll be back soon. The girl wishes him good luck. He goes inside. The mushrooms are attacking him. He remembers Kaede and Maranthy, and then thanks them, and starts a fight with mushrooms. Ulara asked what kind of desperate cries they were. Kaede says he doesn't know. Maranthy supports the Torah. The main character understands that everything is fine because he is immune to their poison. For himself, he concludes that the Draconians are quite strong. Toru walks forward and walks into the room. He doesn't understand what it is. He begins to explore the room. The guy calls it funny. The guy goes back, and Kaede asks him if he found anything. The main character laughs and says that he found a potion resembling a healing potion and a chest there. Maranthy is happy that he has found so many things and asks if Thor likes it. Kaede gets angry and says that the girl is too close to Thor. She pulls her away and says that the master is only her master. The main character apologizes. Behind him, Ulara advises him as a man to be more careful. He is afraid of her. On the second floor, they deprive you of exploring only unexplored places, since there are many such places on the second floor. The guy asks what used to be here. The girl says that there used to be an underground fortress here, but it is unknown who they were fighting against. The guy thinks to himself that if this underground fortress looks like a dungeon, then what is a real dungeon? He remembers his sudden disappearance. Unexpectedly, Maranthy is asked by him to teach her how to fight. The guy says that's not what they agreed on. The girl says she knows, but she can only rely on Ulara. And it bothers her. She is worried about her weakness. Toru tries to refuse her, but she asks him. Kaidi says that while I'm the master, she can teach her how to treat wounds. The girl is happy about this. Ulara tries to stop her, but Maranthy says that she understands her, but she wants to be at least useful in the future. The girl is determined, and Ulara understands this. She agrees to help her too. Maranthy thanks her. The main character says it's great and suggests going further. Suddenly, another hidden skill breaks. The windows of the system pop up in front of the Toru. The signs say that he got a profession. Eventually, the systems inform him that the skill of accumulating a profession has reached its maximum level, and a new maximum level has been raised. People in the city turn around and do not understand what is happening. One passerby asks what happened. The man says he just saw a lightning bolt. She thinks he thought the sky was perfectly clear. The main character feels great power. He doesn't understand why this is happening right now. Toru looks at the skills of the system and notices that they have improved. He also notices that he has new professions. When everything subsides, he asks if everything is over. Maranthy asks what it was. Ulara asks if it's his ability or something else. The hero apologizes. He asks, since they have changed now, if he can watch them. She agrees and says that there is still plenty of time. He opens the status and sees that now he has such professions as Warrior, Dragon Knight, Master Tamer, Master Imitator, Great Thief. The guy says it looks like he's got a new profession, but he still doesn't understand anything. The girl asks him to take a look and is startled. She says it's an amazing profession and each of them is strong and highly ranked. He asks if she's joking. Kaidi says that she is not joking, and if you compare them with his original profession, the difference is great. A warrior has an increase in strength, an increase in endurance, It's not a bad profession, but when he raises his rank, he discovers a better version of his profession. The Dragon Knight riding, the Great Thief, the Master Tamer have much better all the characteristics. The guy asks about the copycat. The girl says she doesn't know because he's the only one who shows up vaguely and she can't appreciate him. The main character thinks that the copycat sounds quite dangerous. Suddenly he notices something else. A third-level dungeon domain appeared below. He doesn't remember such a line before. Maranthy asks him if he is okay. He responds positively and says that in any case, he has already understood what she wanted. The main character tells them not to go ahead and listen to his instructions. If he tells them to leave, they must leave. The girls say they understand. Maranthy also says that they can join their group. The main character asks her again. The girl responds positively and says that she wants them to accept them into their group, at least for the duration of their stay in the city. The guy says that there is no important need for this. Kaidi assumes that they want to express their gratitude and show their trust in him. Toru agrees and says that Maranthy and Ulara are officially members of their band today. They're moving on. A hall with monsters is passing by. One of them attacks Maranthy. The girl screams. The main character protects her by cutting monsters in half. He tells her not to close her eyes in battle. The girl says she understood him. Kaidi conjures ice spikes and pierces enemies with them. Ulara jumps up. And then he wrings the neck of one of the monsters. Maranthy says that there are too many of them and that she does not understand what they will do next. The girl is panicking. However, the main character puts his hand on her shoulder and urges her to be more calm, and with her current level, she should not be afraid of these monsters. But he also notices that there are quite a lot of them. If she is calm, she will be able to assess the situation normally and therefore kill them. One of the monsters attacks him, but he intercepts his hand. He squeezes it and throws it through the deflection. The guy asks her if she can do the same. The girl responds positively. Kaidi urges her not to worry because they will help her. Ulara tells them not to relax. The girls say they understood her. The guy urges them to head forward. One of the monsters attacks Maranthy, but she dodges and inflicts many wounds on him. The monster is falling. The girl happily screams that she succeeded and killed a large monster herself. Ulara praises her. The guy also notes her excellent work. The girl notices that she has raised the level and now she has 36. Ulara also notices that her level has risen. At the beginning of the journey, she had the 50th level, And now she has the 70s. She thinks it's weird. Maranthy urges them to move on. Ulara calls her energetic. Toru asks you to take your time. He asks Kaide what's wrong. She says she just remembered herself earlier. The guy says she was much worse than them. The girl blushes with tears in her eyes. She says it's time for them to get to the surface anyway. Toru thinks she's right. The main character turns to Maranthy and says that they are thinking of leaving. She is against it and wants to stay a little longer to go to unexplored areas. He thinks to himself that at this rate they will leave here late. The guy agrees and suggests moving on. Maranthy is happy about this. They move on, but come across a dead end. He says it looks like they've reached the end. The girl gets upset. The main character thinks to himself that it looks suspicious. He starts banging on the wall. Kaede turns to him, not understanding what he is doing. The sound of knocking changes. The guy finds a thin spot in the wall and makes a hole with one finger. The girls are surprised and ask how he did it. The main character draws a circle and pushes it to enter. There is a hidden room inside. He finds a sword on the floor. He thinks that it looks brand new even though this place was built a long time ago. He wonders what kind of metal it is made of. The guy calls this technology amazing. Suddenly, someone finds Kaidi and calls him to come to her. They see 2 eggs. The guy asks what it is. Kaidi assumes that these are eggs. The main character believes that this place is abandoned and cannot imagine life here. Kaidi asks him to give her one. She thinks it's a summonable being. The guy doesn't understand her. Therefore, she explains to him that these are artificial creatures created by an ancient race. They were mainly used for routine work and assistance and could also help in combat. Since they are artificial, there should still be life there. She thinks that you just need to pour in mana and the creature should appear. The main character says that it sounds fun and he wants to try it. Kaidi says she's interested in it herself. He pours in mana, but nothing happens at the beginning. He says that he is sure that he is pouring mana now. The girl asks him to wait a little longer and suggests that he needs more mana. In this case, the Toru believes that it is necessary to increase the amount of mana. The whole room is filled with his mana. Ulara asks where so much mana comes from. She doesn't understand what's going on. Kaede is completely calm and says that there is only a little bit left. The main character is surprised that everything is already ready and believes that it is necessary to secure the contract with blood. He cuts his finger and the blood gets on the egg. Something is finally hatching out of him. Kaede and Toru are very surprised. The main character asks if this is a summoned creature. There is a flying eye in front of them. They don't understand what kind of soft and fluffy creature it is. This is the summoned being. The main character says that he has no idea who it is. The girl calls him cute. She offers to wash him and casts spells to do so. A magic circle is formed over the creature, which pours water on it. Toru agrees that he looks cute but wonders what he's useful for. The summoned creature gets mad at him and picks up Kaidi to show his usefulness. The girl exclaims in surprise. The guy says he talked him into it. The girl thinks he's soft and it's adorable. The main character suggests using it as a transport. Kaede suggests giving him a name. Toru suggests calling him a Panta. The girl agrees and says it's a great name. Maranthy says they're done and asks who it is. Kaidi says his name is Panta and now he is their comrade. Ulara finds the name funny. The Panta makes a cute sound. Maranthy calls him cute. The main character looks at them from afar and assumes that they are having fun. He picks up the second egg and thinks about what he should see while there is more. Already at night, they look at what they have got in the dungeon. The hero says that there are the best recovery potions, all kinds of medicines to strengthen the body and much more. He asks the girl what it is and hands her a vial. They use an estimate. She says it's an elixir. The Count and Toru are surprised by this. The man says that this is a very rare potion and he has never seen it before because it costs a lot of money. The Count says that if they are in the capital, then someone will definitely buy it from them, but they are advised to put it up for auction, of course. The guy remembers that either the nobility or rich people participate in the auction of the royal capital, and you can find almost anything there. The guy thinks to himself that he will need to visit there later. The Count says that this is money for the fines provided to him. Toru is surprised by their number and asks how many there are. The man says there are 500 million here. This is the first time the Toru has seen such a large amount of money. He calls Pantu and he arrives at his call. Suddenly, Maranthy bursts into the room without clothes and in foam. She screams that they haven't finished washing yet, but sees the main character and covers herself. Kaidi turns Toru away so that he doesn't look there. The main character silently says thank you to her. The Lord is embarrassed. The girl screams loudly, and her father thinks that she just wanted to sleep tonight. The next morning, the main character stretches, saying that it's another day. It's been a few days since they came here. They spent all their time exploring the dungeon and killing monsters. Marianta is now level 100th, and Ulora is level 80. They are now equal in strength to the heroes. He kept his promise. The guy leaves the room. He is greeted by Kaidi, who gives him a good morning. He greets her, and they walk forward together. They see girls training on the street. Marianta wishes him a good morning, and congratulates Ular on his awakening. The main character notices that he has become less of an extension of Marianthe's body. She agrees with him, and says that she did not know how to do this before. The girl asks if they are leaving them. He says that he can stay longer, but he does not finish. Toru thinks to himself that there is still a hole in his heart, and that is why he is forced to leave. The guy says he got a letter from the count, so he's going to the auction. Marianthe says it's good and envies Kaida. She doesn't understand what she's talking about. The girl says she can travel with him. If she had the opportunity, she would also like to see the world. Marianthe thinks it's a lot of fun. The main character looks at the smiling girl. He thinks that she is the daughter of a noble family, and sooner or later she will marry anyway, and it is not for her to choose who she will marry. The girl is just a bird in a cage. The main character thanks them for everything. The count says that he should thank him because he was the one who saved his daughter. Marianthe is silent. Toru turns to her and tells her that they will meet soon. The guy urges her not to be sad. The girl says that when she thinks about him leaving them, she wants to cry. Suddenly, Marianthe is hugged by Kaide. She says that the master, and she will not forget her. Marianthe asks if they will really come to her again, and Kaede promises her that. The girl cries and says that she is really jealous of her. The guys are leaving. The guy urges the girl to move on, and she obeys. The city of Luntata. Sain doesn't understand what happened and where the dungeon is. They are standing near the hole. One of the adventurers asks if they are new, and says that the dungeon has been gone for a long time. The heroes remember that this guy said that it had been missing for about a month, which means someone passed it before him. He's nervous because he was supposed to make his debut as a hero in this dungeon, which means he just wasted his time. Sawara asks him if she is alright. The guy doesn't like her look. He throws himself at her and screams at her not to touch him. The girls tell him to stop. The characters ask how she dared to touch him. She says she's in pain. The other girls are trying to stop him. They tell him to stop because Sora will die if he doesn't stop. He leaves her alone. Lisa asks the girl if she is whole. She says that everything is fine. Nei tells him that you can't hurt your friends. People nearby are whispering and saying that this guy scares them. Someone from the crowd suggests calling the guards. Sain thinks it's bad. His actions now only worsen his reputation. The girls have lost the effect of brainwashing. He understands that he should keep a better eye on them. The guy is using the demonic eye again. The girls are immersed in hypnosis. He commands them to follow him, and all four leave. After a while, they sit down. Lisa says that the kingdom of Armand will be a wonderful place for his purposes. She suggests going back to where we started and just trying everything over again. The guy asks the reason. She says that their whole plan is to get the holy sword. But he failed. She doesn't think it's safe to go on, and they need a plan. The guy is angry because she is right, but he understands that if they do this, then he will have to bow down to the kingdom and tell the reason for the failure. He refuses this idea because he will never fall so low. Sain remembers that there are still holy swords, and if they cross Armand they will be able to find another one. Nei says there is a city on the way there, and there may be unexplored dungeons. She suggests trying to make her debut there. The guy agrees and says that if they succeed, they will be able to attract attention. The girls say they understood him. The guy is surprised by what the count said. The man says that the ruins have already been fully explored and there is nothing more to do here. Sain asks who did it. He replies that a group of travelers did it, and they even got rid of the general of the demon army. Suddenly, Marianthe comes into the room. She is surprised that he has guests. Sain is amazed at the beauty of the girl and says that she is simply amazing. The guy wants to make her his own. He turns to her and uses the demonic eye of seduction. However, his eyes start to hurt a lot, and he grabs them. He doesn't understand what happened. But the system explains to him that the effect does not apply to targets whose level is higher than the level of the skill carrier. He thinks that this is impossible and cannot believe that her level is higher than that of the hero. Maranthy holds a sword to his throat and asks what he wanted to do with it. Sain is surprised that she managed to approach him quickly. The Count says that he is chosen by God, but also mentions that the gods sometimes encourage those who work hard. Sain suggests that the gods love ordinary adventurers more than heroes. The Count agrees with him and says that they have the power to make you believe so and the heart rate. He says that their conversation is over and asks him to leave this place before he orders them to be killed. Sain is angry and does not understand why everything he is trying to do is not working. He's a hero. The girls say it's better for them to return to their country. The guy is yelling at them because of the holy sword. He says they should get the sword, and that's his decision. Sain orders them to follow him, and the girls obey. He would receive the holy sword, and then he would become the perfect self who controlled everything. He can't lose. A girl and a young man are standing on a small path and looking up. An icy rain fell on the monsters, which the girl summoned. The monsters began to dodge the attack. The young man puts his hand forward. The young man also calls upon a certain force, which is called Ryokou. A sharp tip appears from the young man's hand, which flies forward. Ryokou attacks flying monsters. All the monsters are pierced by a sharp tip. The monsters scream in pain. The creature unfolds in the air, changing its flight path. The tip returns to the young man. The young man praises this creature. Unknown ruins of a large castle that stand high in the mountains. There are many different trees around. The sky is full of clouds. The young man and the girl have set up a small camp for themselves and are now resting. The girl says that she did not expect that there would be another summoned beast in the second egg. The young man says that Ryokou looks more like a fighter. The girl says that Ryokou can fly high, and this makes him a very useful animal. The girl leans closer to the creature. The girl asks if it wants to show what it is capable of. The young man looks at the girl. The guy is surprised that she can understand the speech of this creature. The girl with the ears says she doesn't know how to explain it. A guy and a girl are watching their creatures with interest, which can communicate with each other. The young man states the fact that they can understand each other. Suddenly, both creatures abruptly fly high up. The guy and the girl are very surprised and do not understand what is happening. The girl's creature has returned. The guy talks about it and assumes that both creatures decided to compete. The girl with the ears says that the antler can fly to a height of 10 meters. The young man raises his head up, bringing his hand to his face. The guy shouts and orders Ryokou to come back to him. The guy holds his being in his hands. The young man does not know how far Ryokou can fly, but if anything, he can be used as a guide. A certain sound comes through the guy's heavy armor. The young man turns to the girl and says that he is hungry. The guy offers to cook food. The guy continues to sit in place with one arm outstretched. The guy tells Ryokou to come back. The girl addresses the young man, calling him master. The guy responds. The girl with the ears asks for permission to cook food this time. The young man looks at the girl in surprise and asks if she can. The girl stretches out one hand and says she can't, but Ulara taught her something. After a while, the girl comes out in a new apron. The girl says that she recently bought it and asks what the owner thinks about it. The girl happily goes to the cauldron, saying that she bought it when she and Marianne went shopping. The young man narrowed his eyes. The guy looks at a bunch of different, but very strange products on the table. The main character will be surprised if what the girl cooks turns out to be edible. The pot is hanging on a chain over the fire, and some liquid is already boiling in the dishes. The girl with the ears approaches the pot, holding a knife and a frog in her hands. The main character is watching the cooking from the side. He does not understand what the girl is doing. A girl with ears stands over a pot and holds a mandrake in her hands. The young man is looking forward. Sweat is flowing from his face. The main character thinks that the girl talks too much to herself. In his hands, he clutches the girl's creature. The main character looks at the almost ready liquid in the pot and does not understand how it can be eaten, because the liquid is purple. The girl with the ears holds out a plate of freshly cooked food, addressing the guy as the owner. The main character smiles awkwardly, but thanks the girl anyway. The main character thanks for the food and puts a spoon in his mouth with a quick movement, closing his eyes. The young man's eyes open wide. The main character sits stunned with a plate in his hands. He says that it is very tasty. The girl with the ears is smiling. The girl with the ears rushes and hugs the young man around the waist. The guy asks to be careful with the girl, because he eats. The main character continues to eat, and the girl continues to sit and hug the guy. The girl thinks about the smell of the owner. The main character pays attention to the tail, which is wagging. The guy keeps looking down slightly. He assumes that the girl is happy about something. The main character puts a plate with the remaining food and a spoon on a bench. The main character puts his hand on the girl's tail. The girl with the ears raises her head in surprise and screams. This girl is clearly confused by the guy's action. The young man says that the tail is soft. The girl pulls away slightly, but continues to sit and look at the young man with an embarrassed look. The main character looks at the girl excitedly, addressing her as Kaide. The main character and Kaidi look into each other's eyes. The girl stood up slightly and approached the young man. Toru looks ahead, stunned. Lisa calls Thor poor, because she betrayed him, Thor left Sain and found solace in a servant. The young man himself does not move, he is still so stunned. The girl continues to tell Thor in his ear that Kaede can do anything the guy wants. Just ask her. Toru pulls away from Kaidi and awkwardly says he wants more. Kaidi holds her hand on the guy's lap. Kaidi asks if this is true. Kaide quickly shows up near the pot and the campfire. Kaide says that he can cook more. All Thor needs to do is tell him about it. Toru continues to sit and only thanks Kaide. Toru exhales with relief. He realizes that he has almost succumbed to his instincts. Toru understands that everything will be fine with the girl, because she is already an adult. Kaede smiles happily. Toru is not going to consider Kaede as the object of his consolation. Kaede's ears moved. The girl heard something. Kaede gets to his feet and looks seriously ahead, calling Toru, addressing him as master. Toru also gets to his feet and looks carefully ahead. Kaede and Toru look at the sky, where many monsters are flying. Toru suggests that the monsters were attracted by the smell of the food that Kaede cooked. Kaede says these monsters are bigger than the wyverns that came before them. Toru says he wants to see what Raska is capable of. Toru puts his finger forward and, with a smile on his face, tells Raska to take their lives. Raska swiftly pierces all the wyverns. All the wyverns fall to the ground, no longer showing signs of life. Toru looks at the passing Rasko and says that he is extraordinarily strong. Kaede says it could be related either to Toru's blood or to the tamer's new profession. Toru says that he forgot about his new profession. After a while, Toru and Kaede set off on their journey. A young man and a girl are walking through a busy settlement. The girl puts one hand behind her head and asks if this is the big capital. The main character says that Armin's kingdom is very large and there is a lot to be found here. Toru also says that the amount of goods in the shops is simply abundant. The young man notices that there are also a lot of famous adventurers in this place. Kaede says with a smile on her face that she wants to visit as many places as possible. The young man agrees, but first they need to meet and give the letter to the count. The girl asks who they're going to anyway. Thor replies that this count's name is Jonathan Rockbell. The young man looks at Kaede with a smile and says that Count Jonathan Rockbell is engaged in the shipping business and is very famous in the capital. Suddenly, a scream is heard in the distance and an explosion occurs. Someone is shouting for someone to stop the cart. An angry animal with a cart rushes forward. Some people who are nearby jump aside. Toru and Kaede look ahead with interest. Someone argues and assumes that this animal is some kind of subspecies of a dragon. No one knows what could have angered him so much. All the people are running away from the enraged animal. One man tells the boy and the girl to run. Toru thanks the man and says they will give it up. Kaede asks if Toru wants her to stop the animal. Toru stands and looks ahead. Suddenly, a man appears behind him, shouting for everyone to get out of the way. Two men stand in front of Toru and Kaede. One with long hair says they will stop the animal. The second one, with a receding hairline, says that Toru and Kaede should not get in the way. Several people have stopped and are looking ahead. In these men, they recognize the two Sail brothers, the dragon hunters. The man with the receding hairline says he has never seen a man hide behind a woman, much less a servant. The second one says that he lost his life because of shame, then he lived like this. Kaede looks ahead with displeasure, fans in her hands. Kaede suggests freezing them. Toru, with a smile on his face, says that it is not necessary yet. Sale's two brothers are standing, and an animal is rushing right at them. One of the brothers, who has long hair, grabs the animal by its horns, breathing heavily. The second of the Sale brothers comes to the rescue. The men hold the animal by the horns and try to stop it. Suddenly, the animal begins to shake its head violently to the sides, and the Sale brothers fly away, screaming. People are looking up, where one of the brothers flew into a tree. People don't understand what's going on. The animal was seen by two people who are watching this spectacle from the side. The little boy began to cry loudly, and the girl looks forward in fright, holding the boy by the shoulders. The enraged animal rushes at the girl and the boy, who sat down on the ground and hugged each other. Toru looks at Kaidi seriously, and says that the animal is on him. Kaidi smiles and says she understands. The main character finds himself in the path of an animal. Toru stretches out one hand and looks intently ahead. Dust rose high behind Toru, and the animal stopped next to Toru. The guy stands with his arm outstretched. Several people stand and stare, stunned. A middle-aged man is sitting on the carriage. The man jumped from the sudden stop of the carriage. The man sits down and, rubbing his head, asks what happened. Toru stands in front of the animal. The animal is no longer going to harm. The guy strokes the animal's horns and says that he is a good boy. The man who fell from the carriage thanks the young man for his help. Toru says that there is nothing to thank him for. Toru turns to the man and asks him if he knows Jonathan Rockbell. The man looks at the guy in surprise. A middle-aged man is sitting impressively on the couch. He introduces himself as Jonathan Rockbell, the head of this company. This man believes that Toru and Kaede brought him a letter from the Count. Toru holds out his hand, which contains a letter from the Count. Jonathan opened the letter and began to read it carefully. Jonathan turns to a guy who is about to drink some tea from a mug. Jonathan asks if the guy's name is Toru. Jonathan already says that Thor helped a lot there. Toru nevertheless lifts the mug to his mouth and sips the contents. Toru, with a calm face, says that he did only what he had to do. Jonathan closed his eyes and raised his hand to his face. Jonathan says he's interested in Tora. Jonathan says he will comply with the Count's request. The young man did not know that there was some kind of request in the letter. Jonathan smiles and looks ahead. Jonathan can't say yet what the Count asked for. Jonathan gets up from the couch and tells Toru and Kaide to come tomorrow night, because a man needs time to think. Toru looks seriously ahead and asks if he will find out about the essence of the request when he comes tomorrow. Jonathan turns around and says that he promises that the guy will find out everything. Also, a man just needs to find normal clothes for himself. The guy hopes that he won't get into any trouble. Thor thinks he looks strange in these clothes. Kaidi stands next to him in a beautiful dress and smiling, says that this suit suits the young man. A carriage pulls up to the young man and the girl. The guy and the girl pay attention to this and come closer. Jonathan immediately turns to Thor and Kaidi, who have already come very close. Jonathan looks down. Someone recognized the man and is calling his name. Jonathan says he's glad the guy and the girl have arrived. Jonathan asks Toru and Kaidi to follow them. Jonathan, Toru, and Kaidi are sitting inside the carriage. Jonathan looks seriously ahead and says that no one should say where they are going now. The main character asks if this is a secret place. The man says that there is no place for a commoner. Jonathan says it's going to be a secret audience. After a while, the carriage drove up to the big castle. A voice comes from somewhere, asking everyone to come through. A carriage with horses stands in front of a large gate, from where a man came out and points with his hand to everyone where to go. A man walks up to one door and opens it. The man turns around and, smiling, asks the young man and the girl to wait for him here. Kaidi and Toru are sitting on a couch in a spacious room. Toru turns around when someone starts talking. The voice says that he couldn't even imagine meeting someone very influential. A man with a beard stands and looks straight ahead. He is dressed in gorgeous clothes, and the guy in him immediately recognizes King Armand. There are two strong men standing behind the king. The king says that this is not an official audience, and asks not to talk about it. The king immediately thanks you for your understanding. The man who brought Toru and Kaidi into this room bowed his head and said he understood. The king looks carefully ahead and says that the reason he has gathered everyone here is because he wants to ask for a favor. Toru still asks the king what kind of favor it is. The king stares ahead and says that the capital is in danger. Toru asks to get down to business quickly. The king says he wants Toru to defeat the Ant Queen. Toru looks very surprised. Toru says that it was the queen who destroyed several thousand troops, and the king wants the two of them to defeat this queen. Kaidi asks why they don't use elite troops. King Armand lowers his head, leaning on his staff. The king says that the army is now in a deplorable state. Toru asks if the king is serious. The king says that the ants appeared unexpectedly near the lying villages and destroyed the trees in a matter of hours. The king immediately tried to destroy them, but it was to no avail. Now the ants are heading to the capital. The king says that this is a very sad situation and asks the young man if he can defeat the ants. The young man turns his head sharply and agrees. Jonathan and the king are greatly surprised. The king quickly began to say that if the guy and the girl could do it, he would give them a title and lands. The king gets to his feet and offers the young man the title of hero, but Thor refuses it. The king sits back down on the chair, saying that he will pay Thor. The young man asks how much money the king is offering him. The king looks up at the Torah and says, 300 million. The guy says that this money is more than enough, and that's what they agreed on. The guy turns around and says that they will leave tomorrow, but he would like someone to take them closer to the nest. The king says that one of the commanders will do it. The king asks if they really don't need the title of hero. Toru stands with his hands in his pockets. The guy doesn't need a title, he just wants to travel and enjoy life. Kaede stands behind the guy and looks modestly ahead. After a while, a young man and a girl follow a man in the forest. The young man says that this forest is beautiful. The man who was sent by the king agrees with this and continues on his way. Toru notices that there are a lot of soldiers deprived of their lives here. The man says that there is a nest nearby, which means that they are almost there. Kaede began to say that she was worried about one thing. Kaidi asks if the deadly ants are too dangerous. Toru and the man are surprised by the girl's question and ask what she meant. The man says that even a child knows that these monsters are dangerous. Kaidi stammers and begs for forgiveness. Kaidi looks forward excitedly, raising his hand to his face. The young man wonders what happened to her before she became a servant. Suddenly, the girl's eyes open wide and her eyebrows rise high. Kaidi noticed something ahead. Monsters began to come out of their hiding place, heading towards the team. A lot of ant-like monsters began to move towards the team and make loud noises. Kaidi began to look around. The girl would find out from the young man if these were the monsters. The guy reaches for his sword and says it's them, and they're also surrounding them. The man accompanying the young man and the girl is already standing with a sword in his hands and screaming in fright. The man is surprised that they were already in the territory of the ants. The man turns around and looks at Thora, who is staring intently ahead with a sword on his shoulder. The man looks angry. He doesn't understand what's going on in the king's head. The man shouted that they would be attacked, and the whole team immediately prepared to defend themselves. Toru got into a fighting position and pulled his sword behind his back. With one swing of the sword, the main character throws away all the monsters that came close enough to him. 2 fans appeared in Kaede's hands. The girl was sitting on a stump and called for the hammer of air. Suddenly, all monsters lose their lives, and all living things around fly back from a strong blow. The man accompanying the guy and the girl looks at all this in a daze and asks what it was. There were no monsters in front of the team now, they were all defeated. Toru puts the sword in the knives and says that there will be even more monsters in the nest. Kaede, sitting in place, says she realized she wanted to use air magic to clear the way. Kaidi began to spin around herself very quickly, causing a double tornado. Several tornadoes began to appear around the girl. Many large and strong tornadoes sweep through the forest, sweeping away everything in their path. Kaidi looks down slightly and holds one of the fans behind his back. The girl says that now it's the turn of the ice cage. Everything around where Kaidi's magic reached became covered with sharp and cold ice. Toru looks ahead and says Kaidi overdid it. The man accompanying them stands and looks at it all in shock. Toru says the man can go. Kaidi noticed a hole in the ground. The man left, and Toru and Kaidi moved on. Kaidi and Toru went to a large hole in the ground and began to look into its depths. Toru asks if this is definitely an entrance and not a trap. Toru thought about it. The guy realizes that in order to receive the reward, they need to bring the head of the queen, which means that even creatures cannot be used. The guy throws his head back and says it would be better if they personally went down there. The young man thought about it. He remembered a certain sign that says Master Tamer, Imitator, Great Thief, and Domain, Dungeon Level 3. Toru began to scroll through the newly appeared sign. Previously, he had dungeon possessions in his status. The dungeons disappear and appear because the guy passed them. Toru clicks on the use sign that has just appeared again. There is a large sword behind the young man's back. Toru says they have to go now. The young man stretches his hand forward and bright light poured out of the hole. Toru and Kaidi are standing in front of a large passage. The guy doesn't believe that everything really worked out. Kaidi says this place is like a dungeon in Luntada. The table reappeared in front of the guy. The guy looks at it and says that the owner of the dungeons can move freely between floors. Kaidi is happy and says that now they can go straight to the queen. The guy and the girl find themselves in a large room with large closed doors behind them. At the other end of the room sits the Ant Queen and several of her monsters, who have already seen the appearance of Toru and Kaidi. The queen gets angry and asks what Toru and Kaidi did to her nest. Toru and Kaidi are looking ahead intently. Toru says that the queen is bigger than the others. The queen raises her hands up and orders the monsters to turn Toru and Kaidi into meat and bring it to her. All the monsters that were in the room and were going to attack Toru and Kaidi are lying on the floor without signs of life. Toru stands straight and smiles. The guy says that Kaidi is merciless. The queen stands over the corpses of all the monsters. She asks how a guy and a girl dared to do such a thing. The Ant Queen's hands reached for the various body parts of her subordinates and grabbed them tightly. The main character is watching this attentively and at the same time stunned. His eyes are wide open. The queen says that when she eats the flesh of monsters, her level rises faster. The queen ant began to move forward, still ominously looking ahead. Now she has 86 levels, and she is not afraid of any hero. Toru reaches for his sword, at the same time telling Kaidi to go back because the young man wants to defeat the queen himself. Toru stands behind the queen and says that she is fast, which means that we need to finish with her as soon as possible. The queen looks forward and folds her hands in front of her. She calls for an ice trap. Toru is walking with his sword. His face looks serious. Blocks of ice began to appear on the sides of the guy. The queen smiles and says that a high-ranking demon can use magic. The Ant Queen says that she took the life of the girl's master and asks what her last word is. The girl starts to smile. Toru squeezes through the blocks of ice, who says that as he thought, the queen is strong. The main character stares ahead and smiles. Baring his teeth, he says that he will have to stay here. The main character clenched his teeth tightly. The young man still managed to get out and is now flying forward. The queen of the ants looks at the guy in surprise. The queen says that the guy is strong for a human. The queen also asks who the young man is. Toru reaches for his sword and says that he is an ordinary warrior. The queen says that an ordinary warrior can't be that strong. The queen hits the floor with all her strength and causes an earthquake. Toru was able to stick the sword into the wall and is now hanging on it, asking the queen what she wants to do. Suddenly, liquid began to pour out of the queen's mouth. The queen can't wait for the moment when Toru loses his life. Toru lands on the floor and looks at the place where the liquid landed. Toru recognizes formic acid in this liquid. The queen spits out formic acid again. She says that this acid melts any metal. The guy is watching her closely. The queen looks up ominously and thinks that now Thor has nowhere to go, because she made a rain of formic acid. Toru really won't be able to dodge the acid, but the liquid won't be able to do anything to him either. Toru realizes that his clothes may disappear. Toru began to rotate the sword very quickly over his head, forming to some extent a shelter from formic acid. Kaidi stretched her arms out to the sides, fans are clenched in her palms, and a dome has formed over the girl's head, which prevents acid from getting on the girl. Toru says it's his turn to attack. The young man says that he will take the head of the queen ant with him. The queen looks ahead dumbfounded and does not understand what is wrong with Toru. The queen was even more angry. The queen starts attacking the guy standing next to her again. Toru pushes off with all his might and soars high above the queen. The monster is watching this. The queen screams for Toru to lose his life and starts attacking him quickly with her paws. The queen looks forward, her mouth wide open. The monster is surprised that Toru dodged again, so also with his whole body. The young man begs and detaches the queen's head from the body with one blow. Toru lands and watches as the queen's head and one of her paws fly through the air, and her body is tilted back. The main character says that the task is completed. He hides the sword in the scabbard. Kaidi smiles and says it was a great job. The girl holds out a towel to the guy. The girl asks what's with the rest of the ants, since the queen has been defeated. Toru says that since he is the master of this dungeon, he will be able to take all the monsters' lives. Small screens appear in front of the Torah, on which something is depicted. Toru looks at the screens, which depict various monsters, and awkwardly smiling, says that there were other monsters who had already been defeated. The queen's head began to jump from side to side and shout that she would take revenge on Thor. Toru is surprised that she is still alive. Kaidi sits down next to the head and says that it is too loud and the girl will put it in a magical vault. After a while, the guy and the girl find themselves in the city. Toru leaned forward and began to move a small box, saying that the queen's head was there. Jonathan Rockbell stands in front of this box and is about to open it. Jonathan turns his gaze to the side and says that he thought so, because he did not expect anything less. Toru stands with his arms crossed over his chest. The guy thanks and says that he did not notice a large army of ants in that place. Jonathan says the royal army has been fighting them for a long time. Jonathan raises his head and says that the forces of the army were running out, and at that moment, Toru and Kaide just arrived. Jonathan also says that it is necessary to repay all the soldiers who participated in the battle. Toru asks himself if the Count was trying to find a way out of the situation. The Count thanks the team for saving the capital, but immediately takes back his words. The Count concludes, Toru and Kaidi have burned an entire kingdom, and an amazing reward awaits them. Toru is surprised when he hears about the reward. The young man got connections with the merchant and the king, and they also prepared a reward for him. Toru remembers the image of the Count. The guy mentally asks the Count how much he is responsible, and what he would do if the young man failed the task. Jonathan says that the team will be coming for them soon and they have little time left to prepare. Suddenly, the door to the room opens and the knights enter. One of the knights asks if they are the same group of travelers. Kaidi looks out from behind Toru and confirms this. Suddenly, a lot of hands reach out. All the knights ask that Toru shake their hands. A loud shout is heard from the knights who wish a long life to the savior of the kingdom. After a while, everyone finds themselves in a huge castle. A lot of people are standing in the room. One of the knights says that a group of travelers has come. Kaidi and Toru, who are dressed in fancy costumes, enter this room. Someone is ordering silence. Kaidi and Toru stand in front of a large staircase, at the top of which the king sits on a throne. Someone represents the king, saying that the ruler of the kingdom of Armand is in front of everyone. King Armand stares down slightly. Toru thinks the king looks majestic. The man shouts for Kaide Tamamo and Toru Evan to step forward. The young man and the girl take a step forward and sit on one knee. The king says that defeating the Ant Queen is a worthy deed, because even the royal army could not cope so quickly. The king believes that the boy and the girl deserve more. King Armand smiles slightly and says that he thanks the guy and the girl on behalf of all the inhabitants of the kingdom. A man brings a cart on which gold bars are laid out in a neat mountain. When the cart stops near the king and the team, the king says that there are 700 million here. The king asks if the team will be satisfied with such a reward. Toru, closing his eyes, confirms this. He is very grateful to the king. The ruler has something else he wants to say. The king turns his eyes slightly to the side and says that he grants the title of heroes to a group of travelers on his behalf. The king keeps saying that if a guy and a girl are strong as heroes, then why shouldn't they have this title? The king adds that if the team does not want this title, then it can cancel it at any time. But then the king would like the young man and the girl to train their successor as well as themselves in the future. Kaida, blushing slightly, says that he and the master will try for the sake of the successor. Toru doesn't understand what the girl is talking about. The ruler of the kingdom of Armana loudly says that from today, a group of travelers will become the heroes of their kingdom. Jonathan Rockbell leads Tora and Kaidi. The man points his finger and says that they have come. After a while, Toru, Kaide comes into the house for Jonathan. Everyone looks around and examines the room. Kaidi stands at a small table and offers Thor a cup of coffee. The guy agrees. Toru turns to Jonathan and asks if he will have coffee. The man goes to the door and says that he needs to go home, so he will refuse. Jonathan asks if he will do it himself, but he refuses. The guy says that before he forgets, he has to tell something. Jonathan Rockbell turns to Thor and starts talking about the letter that was a message to the ruler. The count says that this letter said to make the team heroes, and that's it. The guy awkwardly scratches his head. Now he wonders what the old man is up to, since he asked to be made a hero. Toru turns to the count. The young man received a bracelet, as a symbol of the hero. The young man asks if he can now leave the country. Jonathan turns his head to the guy and says he can go wherever he wants. Toru says that a lot has happened, and now you can relax to the fullest. Kaidi stands next to him and apologizes for not helping the owner properly. Toru offers Kaide to do the housework as an apology. Kaide says there's nothing to do here right now because the house is in perfect condition. Toru awkwardly suggests that Kaidi go shopping. The girl looks ahead and offers the young man to go shopping together. The young man is walking down the street and does not understand why Kaidi sent him for a walk alone, saying that she needed to prepare. On the other hand, the guy does not remember the last time he was alone. Toru notices Kaede a little away from herself. Two men are standing next to her, who call for the girl to go with them. Kaede modestly lowered her eyes and said that she already had a meeting scheduled for today. Toru approaches the men and orders them to take their hands off Kaede because she is with him. The men began to approach the Torah. They asked if the girl was a servant of the Torah. The young man confirms this. Two men begin to attack the Torah. Toru goes straight ahead, saying that men infuriate him. Two men fell to the ground and passers-by are already running towards them. Toru looks worriedly in the direction where Kaede is. The guy asks if this is the first time Kaede has seen such guys. Kaede says that the more she is provoked, the more she wants to hurt everyone. A guy and a girl are walking along a busy street. Toru says that when they walk like this, he remembers Livio. Kaede says she was very young then. After a while, a guy and a girl are sitting in a big boat. Someone says it's time to leave. After a while, the boat sailed away from the pier and found itself in open water. Toru says that they really started to pick up speed. The girl replies that it's so much fun that it takes your breath away. Toru, with a smile on his face, asks Kaede to hold on to him, otherwise the girl may fall. Kaede snuggles up to Thor. A man stands on the edge of the boat and holds an oar in his hands. The boat sails to the edge of the river, and the man shouts for everyone to hold on as tight as possible. The boat does not fall, but flies over the waterfall. The man with the paddle turns around and asks if everything is okay. The man with the paddle smiles and says that they have almost reached the right place and asks everyone to get ready to leave. Kaede starts screaming loudly. Toru looks at the girl in fright and asks if she is hurt. Kaede pulls off her clothes and says that all her new clothes are soaked through. The girl's face looks scared. The young man started laughing, water running down his face. Toru says that this is all just part of the trip. Kaede and Toru are walking down the street. Toru says they went on a night out. Kaede confirms this. Toru remembers something and calls Kaede. Toru says that he has always had fun since their first meeting. Kaede smiles happily and says she had fun too. Toru suggests that we go home and cook dinner together. The guy is sitting with three girls next to him. One of the girls says that she heard about the dungeon from an adventurer. This dungeon is complex and has not yet been studied. A girl with short hair turns around and says with a smile on her face that there are strong and rare items there. This guy didn't succeed in Ulantada, but if he can overcome this dungeon, he will immediately earn a reputation and a name. After a while, everyone finds themselves in the forest. The team came to a place where there was once a forest, and now there is a wasteland. The team goes through a large number of people who came to the dungeon. They are all adventurers. The guy looks around and mentally says the word assessment. There's a slight smile on the guy's face. The guy smiles ominously, putting his hand to his mouth. After a while, the team stands with weapons in their hands, surprise on their faces. One of the girls lies unconscious in the arms of another girl. A large number of orcs who are standing and looking forward. No one has ever seen such orcs. The girl with short hair says that orcs are usually level 20. She doesn't understand what's wrong with these orcs. The guy gets angry and says he doesn't know either. The guy looks at the girl who is unconscious. Lisa tries to bring Sora back to consciousness. Suddenly, one of the orcs strikes, and the guy flies into the wall, where a large hole remains. The guy wheezes in pain. The orcs continue to attack. The guy shouts for everyone to get out of the way, and he will deal with the monsters himself. The girl with short hair screams that she understood. Another girl is trying to pull Sora. The guy looks angrily ahead and calls for chain lightning. At the same moment, lightning strikes all the orcs. The guy starts laughing and asks how the monsters like this magic. The next moment, the guy's eyes widen in surprise. The orcs look at each other and even laugh, because such magic will not work on them. The guy shouts that he has no mana left and asks a girl named Lisa to do something. The monsters continue to move forward. Some figures are flying between them. The guy shouts for the girl to build a wall, because it is impossible for the monsters to come closer. Lisa stretches her staff forward, and a wall appears between the monsters and the team. Suddenly, the monsters break the wall and pass through the hole. The guy starts running away, saying that Lisa is useless. Lisa holds Sawara and says she can't be left here. A girl with short hair turns to a guy named Sain and asks them not to leave them alone. The team was able to get outside, and now everyone is trying to catch their breath. The girl with short hair says that they still managed to break away from the monsters. Sain approaches Lisa, who is sitting on the ground. Suddenly, Sain hits the girl hard. Sain shouts for Lisa to use more magic. The girl holds her cheek and asks for forgiveness. A girl with short hair stood between them all. She told everyone to stop fighting. Sawara came to her senses and asked for forgiveness. Sain notices that two people are standing to the side and looking at them. Sain realizes that he has a bad habit of taking it out on girls in public. Three guys walk by talking. Lisa suggests asking these men for help. Sain is angry. Sain looks at the men, his face looks angry. Sain understands that these men are level 30. Sain doesn't understand how they managed to beat orcs with such a level. One of the men says he needs to leave, all the others say they will go with him. Sain pulls out his sword. As a hero, he won't help to ask for help, but he wants to take the guys' lives and take all the equipment. Sain goes behind the broken tree where the guys went. Sain jumps out, holding the sword above his head. Sain screams for them to lose their lives. Sain stops and looks ahead in surprise. Three men are squatting across from each other, all three of them looking at Sain, who has come. Sain realizes that the men decided to go to the toilet on the street. Something nasty suddenly flies into Sain's face. Sain comes out to the girls, who is covered in filth. The girls start screaming, and Sain says that the negotiations have failed. The girls ran away from Sain and shouted at the guy not to approach them because he stinks. In the capital of Alman, in a mansion, a waiter approaches Thor and says he has brought a drink. Toru holds a glass of champagne in his hands and says it looks quite expensive. Kaidi says that this is the Marquise's house and everything here must be of proper quality. Kaidi first turns to the Tora. The girl wonders why he chose the place at the very end. Toru says he doesn't know what to do here, so he'll look at the others first and then repeat. Some time ago, Toru is sitting on the couch when there is a knock on the door. Kaida asks the unexpected guest to enter. A middle-aged man enters the room. He says that he has heard that now a guy and a girl live here and he decided to visit them. After a while, everyone is sitting at the table. Toru sits across from Count Rowan and says that he has become a hero, just as the man wanted. The Count smiles and says that he just wanted to thank the guy for saving his daughter. Toru realizes that it was a gift from Count Rowan. The young man asks where Marianne is now. The Count holds a cup in his hands and says that Marianne stayed at home. He wanted to take her, but the girl is undergoing training for brides. The Count gets up from the table and thanks Kaidi for the coffee. When the Count had already descended the stairs, he turned around and said that he had heard that Thora was interested in the auction. A man comes on stage and apologizes for the expectations and says that the auction will start soon. The man on stage says into the microphone that the rules are simple. Whoever puts the most, that's the product. A cart with the first diamond lot was brought to the man. From behind the hall, various amounts that they are ready to give for a diamond began to be heard. Toru raised his hand to his face. From the stage, a man can be heard saying that the diamond was sold to the man at number 56. The next lot is brought to the man on the stage. The presenter says that it is no less valuable, and it is a scroll of blocking skills, and its initial price is 1 million. In the hall, after what they heard, they began to look at each other. Thor raises his hand and offers 1 million. The presenter asks who is willing to give more, but no one answers, and the man says that the scroll was sold for 1 million to number 31. Kaidi looks at the guy and asks why he needs this scroll. Toru says it's an artifact left behind by an ancient civilization. Kaidi says it's amazing, but it's not clear why the aristocrats aren't interested in it. Toru says that the aristocrats themselves never fight. The presenter says that they continue, and the next lot is the Sphere of Salvation. He can save the owner from death, but only once. Voices began to be heard offering huge sums. The presenter says that their servants will go further. The man says that the first one will be the High Elf. Toru looks forward in surprise, clearly delighted with this elf. A small cage appears on the scene, in which a small creature is sitting. The presenter says that the next one will be a special valuable species that lives in the forest. The presenter asks to meet the fairy. He doesn't want to exaggerate, but today it's the main exhibit. Suddenly, Toru freezes, because he has just heard someone's request for help. The young man turns to Kaidi and asks if she has said anything. Kaidi says she was silent. A voice continues to be heard in the guy's head, which continues to beg for salvation. This voice says that he is ready to become a servant, if only he could be saved. Toru understands something and his gaze rushes forward. The guy assumes that this is the voice of a fairy. The fairy is sitting in a cage, hugging herself. The voice continues to sound in the head of the main character. Toru jumps up from his chair and looks dazedly ahead, his eyes wide with surprise. The main character shouted out 600 million. The people in the hall stared at the guy in surprise. They were surprised by the amount that Toru offered. Toru sat down in his seat and folded his arms. He does not believe that he has bet so much. From another table, a voice can be heard offering 600 million. A middle-aged man looks away and runs his tongue over his teeth. Toru gets angry and looks at the man who is laughing. The main character decides to raise the bet. He stares ahead and names the amount of 800 million. A dispute begins between the man and the Tora, each adding 10 million to the amount. Toru looks at the man angrily. The guy calls the man persistent and realizes that he will need to go all in. The main character stretches out his hand and says that he is offering 1 billion. The man who competed with Toru looks forward in surprise. He did not expect that such a sum would be wagered. Since no one offers more, then the product was bought by the person number 31. All the people in the hall rose from their seats and began to applaud Thor. The little fairy approaches the cage and grabs the bars with her hands. The fairy's face looks worried. The presenter says that there is still time, and he asks if anyone has something to sell. The main character raises his hand and stands up from his seat. The presenter asks the guy and the girl to come on stage. Kaidi puts the goods on the cart. The main character turns to the presenter and says that this is not a potion, but an elixir. The presenter turns to Thor and asks if the guy is against if he appreciates the product. The presenter picks up a piece of paper and begins to read something in an unknown language. The man's eyes open wide. The presenter shouts that he is real and asks Toru to tell him the starting price that the guy would like. Toru thinks about it and talks about 10 million. People start smiling and talking. Various amounts that people were willing to pay for this elixir began to be heard in the hall. The presenter says that the product was sold for 2,250 million. Toru stands and looks ahead excitedly. It's more than he thought. After a while, Toru and Kaidi are sitting in the room opposite the presenter. The presenter says that he is delighted with the auction. They sometimes need such surprises from buyers. The presenter asks if he needs to collect the amount for the fairy from the sale of the elixir. The Toru confirms this. The presenter says that the purchase of the fairy is 1,100 million, and the sale of the elixir is 2,250 million. The Toru remains in profit by 1,150 million. The presenter pushes a small cage with a fairy sitting in it towards the main character. Toru looks at her curiously. A little girl is sitting and hugging her legs. Toru turns to Kaidi and, smiling, says that this fairy looks like a girl. After a while, everyone found themselves at home. Toru, arms folded, asks if the fairy is going to come out, but there was no answer. Toru points to the fairy's weapon and asks if this hammer is hers, because it looks strong. Kaidi approaches the guy. She says she made tea. The guy thanks her and asks the fairy if she will drink with him, but the fairy is silent. Toru asks Kaidi if she bought cookies. Suddenly, the fairy screams. After a while, the fairy sits on the table and eats cookies. Toru thinks that this fairy didn't resist for long. Kaidi looks at the guy and asks why he paid for this fairy. Toru says he heard the voice of a fairy asking for help. The fairy looks at the guy in surprise and asks if he really heard her voice. Kaidi asks again about the voice. Toru says that at first he thought he was imagining it, but then he realized that this voice belonged to a fairy and decided to buy it. Suddenly, the fairy got out of the cage and made a bow to Thor. She cannot believe that the young man is now her master. The girl apologizes for her earlier behavior. Toru looks at the fairy in a daze. Toru asks why he is now the master of the little fairy. The fairy rises into the air and asks the young man to tell her about his appearance. Toru says he was human, but now he's a draconian. The fairy happily shouts that she has finally found the Toru. Kaidi is even more surprised. He does not believe that the guy is a draconian. Toru looks at the girl wearily and asks if she is being bullied. Kaidi says that the Draconians are a great race whose civilization was very advanced and they left many relics. Kaidi looks at the guy in surprise and asks if that's all he can say. Toru tiredly says that he was a human, but as the level increased, his status changed and he became a draconian. A fairy descends to Thor. She thanks him for saving her and introduces herself. Her name is Frau. The main character looks down and sighs. He is going to terminate the contract and Frau can return home. The girl refuses. She finally found a master, and even her family refused her. Frau says that a neighbor threw stones at her. Frau holds her hammer in her hands and asks if Thora thinks she is weak. Frau says that even though she's cute, she's level 30 and she's very strong. A creature flies out of Thor's hand. Toru looks at it all uncomprehendingly. The creature flies up to Frau and makes a sound. Frau asks what it is. Toru says that this creature is a Ponta. Frau says that Ponta is a very strange name. Ponta started flying after Frau. The fairy says she was just joking. The next day, Toru wakes up in his bed and notices Frau sleeping next to him. Toru comes down the stairs and wishes good morning to Kaidi, who is just bringing breakfast. Kaidi turns around and says that she has not seen Frau yet. The girl asks if the young man knows where she might be. Toru reaches out with Frau and puts her hand on the antler. Toru says that Frau slipped into him at night and slept with him. Toru and Kaidi are sitting at the table having breakfast. Frau finally woke up. The girl was scared and asked where she was. Frau is in the air. Her face looks unhappy. Frau looks forward with displeasure. Putting her hands on her hips, she says that she is ashamed in front of the owner and asks if it is better this way. Kaidi puts another breakfast plate on the table, calling Frau. Kaidi and Frau are talking with a smile on their faces. The main character picks up a cup with something and brings it to his mouth. He asks them to visit after the capital. Frau lifts them into the air and invites them to visit a hidden fairy village. In the forest of Grigot is her native village. There are always flowers growing there, and there are many beautiful places that fairies really like. The guy says it sounds interesting. Toru smiles broadly, baring his teeth. He says their next destination is the fairy village. Frau interrupts Thora and turns her head away, saying that there is something she should warn them about. Frau says that fairies hate people and can attack them. The fairy says that you should not underestimate the fairies, because the warriors of the fairy village are several times stronger than her. After a while, Toru and Kaidi enter a large room. People in the guild began to turn to the team. Several guys recognized them as a warrior and a fox. Two girls approach the team and ask if they are from a group of travelers. A middle-aged man comes to the meeting. He introduces himself as a guildmaster. Toru turns to the guildmaster and asks what's going on here. The master says they are a group of travelers and they have the title of Heroes of the Kingdom. The guildmaster says he will do anything for them because they are an S-rank group. They only need to ask for it. Kaede began to summon a ball of light, and Toru sat down next to the girl. Suddenly, the guy and the girl disappeared. Kaede and Toru are standing on the roof of the building and laughing. Toru believes that they won't be able to enter the guild quietly now. Kaede agrees with the guy. Kaede suggests going back and making sweets. Toru says that Kaede is a great cook, and the fairy should definitely try the girl's food. Toru, Kaidi, Ponta, and Frau are in some place. The young man invokes the magic of water. A large stream of water began to pour out of the guy's palm. The magic of the main character is directed forward, to where the high cliffs are located. The water hits them. Toru is surprised, because his accuracy is getting better and better. Toru is going to apply the following earth magic. Kaidi stands to the side with his head down and his eyes closed. The girl asks the guy to stop. Toru starts laughing. The guy says that he really liked magic and wanted to try it out again. Kaidi asks the owner to wait. Kaidi raised her index finger up and slightly closing her eyes, says that, although she is a servant, she will speak out. The girl says that the magic of the young man is too dangerous. Kaidi says that the reason why Toru used her again is not important, you need to be careful. Toru stands opposite and looks awkwardly at the girl. He says that everything is under control. Kaidi says that Toru's accuracy is still lame and he can destroy an entire city. Toru lowers his head and says he will be careful next time. Toru scratches his head and says that he imposes magic on the 4 elements, and his mana does not end. They need to figure out how to use it for the benefit of people. Toru holds his new sword in his hands and says that he has always wanted such a fiery sword. Suddenly, magic poured out of the hands of the main character, which almost touched Panut and Frau. They managed to fly away. Frau is sitting on the panther. Both are angry. Frau brightens up whether the young man is going to take his life. Toru apologizes. Suddenly, a message appears in front of Toru's face, which says that the dungeon level has increased from 3 to 5. The guy looks at this message in surprise. Kaidi anxiously asks what happened. Toru stands and looks through the messages. The guy says that his dungeon level has just increased and he doesn't know why. Kaidi thought about it and started saying that there are rumors that a high-level dungeon with rare items has appeared in the capital, so it has become very popular among adventurers. Toru begins to realize that his level has risen. Kaide concludes that this means that a lot of adventurers lost their lives in that dungeon. Frau starts laughing and says that she did not expect anything less from the guy, because this is a feat of a real demon lord. The young man clutches his head and screams. He asks what he should do now. Toru asks Kaeda if she knows what my room is. The girl replies that she does not know. The whole team looks at this sign. Toru says that he can be transported to that place. Kaeda suggests doing it now. The next moment, the team moves to an unknown room. Everyone makes a surprise sound. Someone says that it is very spacious here, but at the same time, there is something strange here. Ahead, the team notices a large crystal that is the core, which means that they are on the ground floor. The guy says it's different from the real one. Kaidi confirms this and says that they were below the lowest floor. Toru spreads his arms wide and, looking at everyone, suggests using this place as a warehouse, because only they have access. Kaidi steps aside and turns around, asks the guy if she can start equipping this place. Toru says that Kaidi can move all things here without even asking. Toru notices Frau and Ponta flying and arguing. Frau says that this place will not be home because she saw it first. Toru laughs. Frau lost so easily, although this is not surprising because Ponta is more of a fairy. Frau stops and realizes that Ponta is chasing Frau just to get in the way. Toru looks up and thinks that Frau and Ponta have become friends. The next day, everything happens in the house in which they temporarily live. Kaide hangs up her clothes and smiles. The sun is shining over her head. The main character is standing on a large balcony with a cup of coffee. Kaidi shouts to the guy that they need to talk about today's schedule. Toru looks down and agrees with this. Toru comes downstairs and asks what happened. Kaidi says she wanted to wash Frau's clothes, but she didn't have a spare set. Kaidi looks at the guy with a smile and says that she would like to go to the store and buy clothes. Toru rubs the back of his head and says that they have no urgent plans for today. After a while, everyone goes to the city. Kaidi sits on a chair and says that this chair suits Thor. Toru smiles awkwardly and says that this chair is good, but it stands out too much. The guy says he'd better go buy some chests for his room. Toru and the team are walking along a busy street. Kaidi stops and points to the store. She offers to look at something there. Frau is outraged because this is a doll shop. Kaidi apologizes to Frau and says that they won't find a better option right now. Toru says they don't have time and will have to take what they have and only then make something to order. The door to the store opens and the team enters the room. They immediately began to look around. Toru noticed a row of dolls on one of the showcases and stopped, looking at them carefully. Toru remembers Little Nee and Sawara and realizes that they had similar dolls as children. Kaidi comes up to Thor from behind. She asks if everything is okay. Toru turns around and says that these are just bad memories. Toru asks if they have found something suitable for Frau. Kaidi stands with his head down, silent. Frau hovers over the heads of the guy and the girl and looks at the dolls. She says that they are all large. Frau stands next to one of the dolls and says that they have different body proportions. A man appears from somewhere and believes that the team has problems. Toru confirms this and asks if the owner has anything for their little Frau. Frau flies closer to the owner's face. The man looks at the girl in surprise and says that he has never seen fairies. The owner says that the team is lucky because he has something. There is a small chest of clothes on the table. Toru asks what it is. The store owner says that these are fairy clothes created by his late wife. The man remembers the image of his wife and says that they got married because they both loved fairies, and his wife's dream was for fairies to wear her clothes. The man pushes the chest to the edge and asks if the team will take it. The man also says that he does not need money. Frau says that although she hates people, she treats those who love fairies well. Therefore, Frau will fulfill the last wish of the owner's beloved and take these clothes for herself. Toru stands and smiles awkwardly, wondering what the owner's wife would say. The owner himself happily thanks Frau. Toru and the shopkeeper stand aside. The guy says that all the dolls are made very efficiently and in detail. The man says that initially he and his wife made clothes, but then they opened a store so that more people would see their creation. Frau appears behind Toru and asks the guy to look at her. Frau is wearing a new outfit. She asks what the young man thinks about it. Toru says that the outfit looks expensive and strict. Kaidi comes up to Thor and whispers in his ear that Frau has been choosing an outfit for a long time and the guy needs to look at her. Toru gives a thumbs up and says that the fairy looks good in this outfit. Frau is glad that the guy finally praised her. Frau stands on the table and points to the package. The fairy says she will accept a gift from the old man. The man thanks her. The owner breathed a sigh of relief and said that his wife's dream had finally come true. The team stands at the exit and tells Thor that they may see each other again. The man goes outside and makes a bow. He tells the team to come in at any time. A man walks into his store and sits on a chair. The owner picks up a photo frame depicting his wife and says that her dream has finally come true. At the other end of the table, a man notices a package. The man sees a note in which it is written that he should use this money to make dolls. There is a lot of money on a small cloth. The man asks who this person is and how much money there is. Toru, Kaid, and Frau are going home. Toru says that Frau should take care of these things. The fairy agrees with him. The door to the room suddenly opens and Kaid enters it, who wishes the end a good morning and tells him to take off his clothes. Toru smiles awkwardly and asks if the girl wants to wash the guy's shirt because she already smells. Kaidi said in fright that the guy had misunderstood everything. Toru takes off his shirt and says that the girl convinced him and hands her a t-shirt. Kaide, in turn, holds out clean clothes. Everyone is sitting at the table and having breakfast. Toru says that bread and coffee are different. The girl says she bought it from another store. Kaidi asks where they are going today. Toru thought about it. He had already gone where he wanted to go, and now he does not know where to go. The girl says with a smile that she wants to go shopping. Kaide says they've run out of groceries. Toru agrees to the girl's proposal. After a while, the whole team went to the city. Toru walks past a table where people are sitting. One person asks if his friends know that sandworms have started appearing all over the kingdom. The guild began to receive a lot of requests for worms. Everything would have been fine if it hadn't been for the regeneration of worms. Toru and Kaidi walk across the bridge. The main character says that they need to resume their journey. The guy and the girl stop and look into the distance. The main character says that they have already stayed too long. Toru looks ahead with a sad face. He began to recognize faces on the street and even thought about staying here. The other part of the guy can't forget what happened. The purpose of Toru's trip is to get peace of mind and forget what happened. The team comes to a crowded market. Kaide goes ahead and says that she has almost bought everything. Suddenly Toru hears a scream that calls a girl named Kumin. Toru approaches the woman and asks if she has lost someone. The woman asks if the young man has seen a girl about 5 years old. They split up at the market. Toru offers the woman help in finding her daughter, but asks her to describe the girl. The woman began excitedly describing her daughter's appearance. Toru and Kaide began running around the market and looking for the girl, loudly shouting her name. Toru passes by a shop, the food of which has a strong smell. The young man runs up to Kaide and grabs her hands. Toru asks if a girl can find a person by smell. Stuttering, Kaidi says he can. Toru is happy and says that they need to go to their mother. She must have something. The woman hands a handkerchief to Kumin Kaidi and she brings it to her nose, inhaling the smell. The woman and Toru are standing and watching intently. Kaide lowers his head, closes his eyes, and inhales the air. Kaidi starts running. She says that Kumin is still here. The woman is worried and the guy asks where exactly. The girl just had to follow her. Kaidi turns her head and sees a trace of cumin scent. Everyone turns onto a small street where everything is laid out of stone. Kaidi hears someone's voice as they run by. A girl on a strange creature is crying and calling for her mother. The little girl tells her not to whine because they will find the mother. Toru and Kaidi stop when they realize it's Panta and Frau. Toru doesn't understand what they're doing here. The woman runs forward and calls the girl by name. Kumin is sitting on the pant and turned her head when she heard her mother's voice. The woman continues to run to the girl, asking why she left without asking. Toru and Kaidi are standing still. The girl with a smile on her face says that she is glad that everything ended well. The young man agrees with her. Suddenly, everything started shaking. The guy looks around. It's very similar to an earthquake. The ground began to shake near the woman. Someone was shouting at her to leave. The creature rises high up and lets out an angry roar. Kumin starts crying hard and calling for his mother. Toru resorts to Frau and Kumin with a woman in his arms. He barely made it. Frau is surprised that a young man is here. Toru shouts that Kaede would distract the worm, and at this time he will take Kumin and her mother. Kaede stands on the other side and shouts that she understood. Toru shouts for Panta and Frau to take the girl and the mother. Frau and Panta climb high up. Toru thinks there are too many sandworms, and if the people at that table were right, then it's the boy's magic. Kaidi continues to distract the monster. He crawls after her through the houses, and the girl jumps high. Kaidi looks back. She can keep running on, but soon they will leave the alley and go out to where there are a lot of people. Kaidi does not notice how the monster got closer to her and some strange liquid flew into her. Toru runs from behind and notices it all. He excitedly calls Kaidi. Toru curses at the monster, and with just one kick he cuts the sandworm, separating its front part. The monster begins to grow a new front part. Toru looks ahead with horror in his eyes. He has completely forgotten about regeneration. The young man runs up to the girl and asks if she is safe. Toru notices something. Kaidi sits on the ground and covers herself. The liquid that the monster spits dissolved the girl's clothes. She asks the guy not to look. Kaidi suggests that the guy deal with the worm. Toru agrees. The guy and the girl are on their feet. Kaidi continues to cover himself. Kaidi says she can freeze it, only she forgot her fans at home. Kaidi says that she cannot guarantee the control, strength, and accuracy of the spell. Toru and Kaide fly apart as they are attacked by a worm. The Tora will come up with something else. The Tora stands and analyzes. He realized that the regeneration of the monster negates the victory by brute force, and the more they hold it, the more damage the capital. Kaede screams from below that she can use magic, but she needs a little more space. Toru shouts at Kaede to use wind magic on his signal. The worm turns aside, people run in horror. Toru gets even more drunk with his fingers into a worm. Toru throws a huge creature high up. Kaede uses air magic to cause an air explosion. Toru flies high and grabs the worm. Toru holds onto the worm and says that in this place he will be able to get back at it better. After a while, the woman holds her daughter's hand and thanks the team. The girl waves her hand and says goodbye to the fairy. Frau is angry. She doesn't understand how they dare to call her that. Toru says it's getting late and they need to go home. Frau flies up to the guy and asks her to pet him because she was protecting mother and daughter. Kaede stands to the side, her face looking rather sad. Toru approaches Kaede and puts his jacket on her, saying that it will be warmer in clothes. Kaede also smiles and holds Toru's jacket. The girl thanks the guy. After a while, Toru hands the key to Jonathan. Jonathan takes the key and asks where the team is going. Toru smiles and says it's a secret, but he promises that if he succeeds, he will contact the Count through the guild. Jonathan falls to his knees and groans in pain. Toru runs away and asks for forgiveness. Kaede turns around and apologizes for that. The Count looks ahead, a grin on his face. He did not expect that their heroes are also hooligans. The team runs with smiles on their faces. Toru says that they are going to the fairy village. Everyone is shouting joyfully. After a while, the team comes to another city with big houses. With big houses, Toru wakes up and pulls up, saying that he slept well. Kaede is in the guy's room and wishes the owner good morning. Toru wishes the same. Toru says Kaede got up early. The girl turns around and says that she went grocery shopping and made sandwiches for everyone. Toru gets out of bed and asks if they are ready. Kaede says that the young man himself said that they were going to the fairy village in the morning. Toru says that's what Frau said. Kaede points to the bed and says that Frau is not going to wake up. Toru says, let the fairy sleep. Toru puts on his armor and notices some holes and even torn places on it. Kaede approaches Thor and says that the guy's armor will break soon. Toru agrees with this, because he wears it every day. Toru looks forward with a smile and says that he has become very attached to this armor, but he understands that it needs to be changed. Kaede has come up with something. Kaede starts clapping his hands and says that he knows which armor will suit the young man. The guy looks at the girl. He no longer likes Kaede's enthusiasm. After some time, the team came to a beautiful place. Toru looks up a little and realizes that he knew where they were going. The team came to the temple of the sacred weapon. The team stands on one of the roots of a tree that runs through the water. The team goes to the entrance, and Toru says that Kaede wanted to give him armor, not weapons. Kaede asks if the guy remembers how he got the sword. Toru helps Kaede up and asks if this weapon can turn into armor. The girl confirms this and says that the sacred weapon has no definite shape. Toru and Kaede walk along the edge, and the girl says that not everything is as simple as it seems at first glance. The weapon takes shape only once, when the new owner pulls it out. Toru looks at the girl and asks her if it is possible to wield several sacred weapons at once, because he had never heard of such a thing before. Kaidi says that all sacred weapons are different from each other. They are indestructible and possess different properties and increase the level in different ways. Previously, such owners were called those who are capable of becoming a king. Kaidi says that's why no one was able to get more than one. Toru says he doesn't want to become king. Toru also asks if getting a second weapon won't be more difficult. Kaidi smiles and says that the owner will handle everything. Toru looks at the girl awkwardly and says he wants to have the same confidence. The team came to the entrance and Kaidi noticed something. Toru sits down on one knee and looks at the footprints of 3 or 4 people. Frau assumes that the weapon has already been taken away. Toru gets to his feet, and the girl asks him what they will do now. To tell Thor that they will come in, since they have come. The main character's hand reaches for the door, and he opens it wide, getting into a large and spacious room. The sacred weapon stands a little crookedly in place. The team laughs at the fact that those people just couldn't pull out their guns. The team approaches the pedestal with the sacred weapon, and the Torah is lifted up a small staircase. Toru stands in front of the sword and stares at it intently. He asks if he will succeed, or if his armor will never happen. There is a bright flash. A couple of days ago in the capital of Alman, Sain and his team stand at the counter and ask if they've heard of him and if they have a decent job. Sain notices the people sitting behind him and asks them why they're looking at him like that. The guy thinks he's been recognized. Sain turns back to the girl and asks for forgiveness. He didn't want to scare her. The girl says they need to go to the bulletin board. That's what everyone does. Sain lowers his head and covers his face with his hand. He asks not to tell him that the girl did not recognize him. Sain begins to scream loudly and bang on his chest. The guy shouts that they are his group and they have an S rank. The girl tilts her head to the side and asks with a smile, "What's wrong with that?" Sain looks away. If this were happening in his native kingdom, they would have already made a big fuss. The men at the table say that if Sain wants to earn status and fame for himself, then he needs to earn a reputation no less than a group of travelers. The guy walks up to the table where the men who just spoke are sitting and asks what they said. Suddenly, Sain strikes one of the men. This man is flying into the wall. The man's friend asks what Sain is doing. Sain will also suddenly attack another man. He strikes with his foot, and he flies far to the side. One of the girls calls the guy by name. Sain orders everyone to be silent because they insulted the great hero. The man gets to his feet and asks which part of this man, immediately resorting to a bad action, refers to the hero. The men in the guild began to gather in a bunch. Someone says that Sain is a fake hero and they will expel him by force. Sain is surrounded from all sides. The guy is standing in a pose and ready to defend himself. Sain strikes one of the men. Next, Sain strikes one blow for 2 at once. The guy stands and holds one man by the collar and tells them to know their place, because they have an average of level 30. Saina calls out to Sawara, who asks the guy to stop, because people can lose their lives. Sain looks at the girl and tells her to keep quiet and not bother him. Sain throws the man aside. Sain realizes that Sora is right. In the worst case, could be imprisoned. Sain turns to the girl and asks what other group of travelers. The girl looks at the guy excitedly. The girl says that this group coped with what even the national army could not overcome. Namely, they defeated the Queen of Ants with her lair and were awarded the title of hero. The girl says that although this group is B rank, they are considered S rank for the kingdom. Sain is surprised. He does not understand how the group could defeat the queen and her minions. Sain considers it absurd that some adventurers were given the status of a hero. The girl says that Sain is unhappy about something. The guy says they have fake heroes instead of the real one. The guy has never heard of this band and assumes that it was formed recently. And since you were able to defeat the queen as a group, it means that she is very strong. Sain screams angrily. He asks not to tell him that Group 1 did it all, because it means that he has a strong opponent. Sain approaches the counter and asks where this group is headed. The girl is excited and says that they left the capital and went to Gridget. The guy goes to the exit and shouts at the girls to follow him. The girls say that they haven't finished the treatment yet, but this doesn't really bother the guy. Sain's team is based in the city of Gridget. One of the men passing by said he had heard that a group of travelers were staying at a hotel. The man points his finger at the same hotel. Sain is about to go win this traveler's game, but stops and realizes that the bearer of the holy ball is there. The guy realizes that he needs the same holy sword, then he can defeat this group of travelers. Sain's group is located in the temple of Krigita. The guy stands in front of the holy ball and says that he was finally able to find it. The girls stand behind and say that they are very happy for the guy. One of them says that the guys need to be supported, as it is important to create a suitable atmosphere. Sain puts one hand on his forehead and stands with a smile. He will finally get what is rightfully his, even though he had to go through a lot of difficulties. Sain thinks that today is the last day when he will pull out this sword and deal with that group of travelers. Sain pulls the holy sword, but it doesn't come out. The girl with short hair suggests Sain not to be so arrogant. Sain asks if the girl thinks that this is a test and the sword wants to test it. Sain maliciously looks forward and is going to take this sword with the strength of the guy, starts pulling the sword and even screams. The girls put aside and support the guy as best they can. One of them says that the guy's face looks like a tomato, the other two say that Sain can, because he is a hero. The muscles of the guy's face swelled up on his face. A large amount of sweat flows down. The guy does not understand why the sword is not pulled out. Sain tried to drag the sword for a whole day, but he couldn't get anything out of the temple. His screams were heard every now and then. The day after Sain's visit to the temple, someone says that the holy sword was pulled out very easily. Kaidi says it impresses her. Frau asks if this is normal. The guy stands with the ball in his hands and asks him what he will turn into. Suddenly, water started pouring out of the ball. Kaidi does not understand what is going on at all and only covers his face with his hands. The girls see the guy's new armor and say that it suits him very well. Frau says she thought the new armor would be heavier, but this one isn't bad either. The tourists look at their new armor with delight. Kaidi comes closer and asks how Toru's new armor is. The guy asks to give him time to think a little. The next moment, the guy starts making various movements, trying out the new armor. Toru scratches his head and says he likes it. It looks like metal armor, but it's very light. Kaede is glad that the guy liked it. Toru asks the girl to try to evaluate the sacred weapon. The girl says she will try and starts evaluating. Kaidi says it's useless. She doesn't have enough level to appreciate the sacred weapon. The girl thinks that even if she raises her level, she still won't see anything. The guy crosses his arms over his chest and asks, "What does this mean?" Kaede says that there is a high-level spell on this armor, hiding any characteristics. Toru had a feeling that the assessment would not take him. But still, the guy wonders which civilization created this sacred weapon, because it has an amazing spell that can do as the owner wanted. The guy looks at the girl and thinks that he became interested in the girl's past, but he decides to leave it for later. Everyone leaves the temple, and the guy says that since they got what they came for, they can head to the fairy village. Everyone is very happy about this. After a while, everyone is in the forest. It's already night outside. In the middle of a large clearing there is a tent in which the team sleeps. It started raining outside, which woke the guy up. The guy goes outside and thinks that it's good that the rain doesn't get there thanks to the tall trees. The guy looks up where the creature is hovering. Toru thanks this creature for guarding their sleep. Toru starts to yawn. He thinks that it's good that the creature is guarding them, but even if it started to defend itself, the guy would still wake up. Toru looks into the tent where the little fairy and the magical creature are sleeping. The guy thinks that these two can sleep anywhere. Messages start appearing in front of the guy's eyes. Toru is very surprised by this and does not understand what it is. This message says that the restoration of points has been completed. Toru says that the thought that his glasses might break does not make him very happy. The guy understands that he has had this skill since birth. It took him 25 years to develop the broke skill. He thinks that the next time the skill breaks, it will be in 30 years. The guy thinks that he already has enough level and he doesn't need more. By the age of 30, the guy thinks he will become an old man. Behind the guy's back, the voice of a girl who is fast asleep can be heard. Toru is looking at her intently. Kaidi is fast asleep, but at the same time asks the guy not to leave her. The girl's face looks worried. The guy's hand falls on the girl's head. Toru sits down next to her and continues to hold his hand on the girl's head, a faint smile on his face. The guy with a small smile says that he is here and is not going anywhere. Tears begin to appear on the girl's face. The girl asks for help. Toru looks at the girl and thinks that she remembered that period of time when she was in the servant's shop, or maybe she remembered another period of her past. Unfortunately, the guy can't help her in any way. Toru wishes good night to the girl. The little fairy defeats a lot of monsters that attack her. Frau looks at the team and asks how they feel, because even though she is small, she is quite strong. The guy scratches his cheek and says that he has never looked down on a fairy. The fairy says that to the Tora when you told her that because of her size she would not be able to fight. Kaidi says that the fairy misunderstood everything. Frau hovers over the heads of the team and says that Kaidi once said that she was worried about the little fairy. The girl and the guy lower their heads and ask the fairy for forgiveness. A sign appears in front of Frau. Frau wondered if she had raised her level. There is a smile on the little girl's face. Frau is surprised that she is already level 35. The guy says it's because of his skill, which allows the whole group to double points. The little girl gets angry and asks if it's even legal. Toru looks at the girl awkwardly and says he doesn't know. Suddenly, a smile appears on Frau's face. The fairy starts flying forward. They say that she wants to raise a couple more levels. A girl and a guy are running after her. They don't ask her to stop. But the little fairy does not hear them and flies far ahead. The guy and the girl stop and look after her. The guy awkwardly says that they don't know where to go. The girl says that you will still have to wait for the fairy. Toru and Kaidi sit on a fallen tree. The guy says that the idea of a break was quite a good one. The girl offers coffee to the owner. Suddenly, a bright flash of light flies into the guy. The guy puts out his arm in the new armor and reflects it. Kaidi runs up to the guy and asks if he's hurt. The guy says he's not hurt. A little man with wings is sitting on a tree and says that the guy has a good reaction speed. The man says that the guy defended himself from his fastest attack, but he immediately says that they will defeat him anyway. A lot of little men appear in the air. They are ready to attack a girl and a guy at any moment. The girl and the guy were surrounded from all sides. Kaidi asks what they should do now. The guy says that he can only dream about rest. Toru, without turning around, tells the girl that it is impossible to attack, since these people may be Frau's friends. The girl understood him. The man shouts for all people to attack. The guy and the girl began to dodge all the attacks, and they were not hit by a single one. The fairy started to get indignant. They don't understand why they don't hit people. Someone says that they are a monster, someone does not understand what to do. The man with the beard says they have no choice left. This man goes up and says that he does not use magic in the area. He will destroy this place, along with a guy and a girl. Toru, with a displeased face, says that their fairy is not there yet. The girl says that she looks like she got carried away with raising the level. The guy lowers his head and exhales. Suddenly he starts shouting, he says it's an order and calls Frau to them. All the fairies cover their ears because the guy's voice was too loud. Suddenly, something fast is approaching them. Where there was an empty field, someone is already walking. All the fairies who attacked the guy and the girl are looking in the direction from which the sound is coming. They do not understand what kind of sound it is. Someone says it's incredibly powerful. Toru and Kaidi look away in disbelief. The guy asks, did the fairy come to them after all? Frau flies closer to her team and asks what they have already done while she was away. Frau, with a serious face, tells everyone to listen to her. The fairy says that a representative of a great race is standing in front of them. The little fairy asks what the others are doing, because this is an act unworthy of fairies. A conversation began among the others. Someone recognized Frau. Someone says that the aura of a guy is different from a human one. A man with a beard stretches out his hand and shouts Frau's name, ask if it's really her. His face looks worried. Suddenly, Frau pushes this man away from you, high up with her hammer. The guy and the girl look at it in surprise. After a while, the guy and the girl walk through the big roots of the tree. There are a lot of fairies flying around them. One of the fairies addresses the guy as a representative of a great race. This fairy says that they will arrive in the village soon. Toru thanks this fairy for showing the way. Frau continues to resent the fact that her relatives raised their hand against the master. The guy says that this would not have happened, or the fairy did not fly away. The girl says that she could have put the gentleman in danger. The leading fairy turns to the team and says that they have arrived at the village. This fairy asks the team to enjoy their little paradise. The team is standing in the middle of a large wasteland. There are big mountains everywhere, and the guy asks if this is really a fairy village. The accompanying fairy tells them to go ahead, as there is a barrier at this place that blocks all unwanted guests. The team is going to go ahead. The girl says that she is looking forward to seeing the fairies in the village. Frau says it's very beautiful and everyone will like it there. The team turns out to be in a very beautiful place. The trees are full of small houses, and fairies are flying among them. The team is watching how some fairies look after the household, some fairies just walk and play. In a small house, a voice is heard asking Sasha to bring tea. The team is sitting at a small table. The guy looks around the room and asks too, "Is this a big house for fairies?" The fairy says that this house is specially for guests. The girl praises the tea. An elderly man is already sitting in front of the team. He is Frau's grandfather and part-time headman of the village of fairies. The headman apologizes for the rudeness in the forest. Suddenly, the headman starts kicking the man who attacked the team in the forest. The headman asks if the man is going to apologize. The headman orders the man to stand up and apologize. Toru asks, "Isn't it too rude?" To which Starro replies that the man is strong. The man came to his senses and began to turn his head and asked where he was. The headman stands behind him and says that the man is in the village. Suddenly, the man points his sharp sword straight at Thora. Suddenly, this man is attacked by Frau and her grandfather. The man asks the headman why he protects people. The headman says that a man needs to look carefully and then he will see the difference. After all, this guy is a representative of a great race. The girl looks at the guy, says that this is a pretty close-knit family. The guy agrees with her. The man who attacked the team in the forest looks at the guy and asks again about the great race. The man began to worship abruptly and unexpectedly and apologized to the guy for not recognizing him right away. The man is attacked by Frau, her grandfather, who says that a man should think first and then do. Tara looks at it all, and he even feels sorry for this man. 3 fairies are sitting in a line in the middle. The headman is sitting, who says it's time for them to get down to business. Toru immediately says that the reason they came to the fairy village is because Frau brought them. The headman says that the village is in distress, and therefore they decided to ask for outside help. Toru says fairies hate humans. The headman agrees with this and says that he asked for help from the elves. The headman says that even the elves couldn't do anything, and that's how badly they were able to live up to today. The guy finally realized that Frau had been sent to find the one who could save their village. But the guy still doesn't understand why they sent Girl 1. The headman says that, despite the appearance of the fairy, they offer prayers to her since she belongs to a great race and she is a priestess. Someone from the team says that she doesn't look like a fairy priestess. Old Age continues to say that only a representative of the great race could hear Frau's prayers. The guy says that this is a good search option. The Frau began to speak. She had been looking for more than a year and had already begun to get disappointed as soon as she was caught at that moment and taken to the auction. Frau says that a representative of the higher race bought her there. The headman says that perhaps this is called fate. The guy agrees with him. Toru asks the headman to tell him what happened to them. The headman says that this is the best thing to see and invites them to go along with him. After a while, the team goes back to the forest. The headman points his finger at the creature that is trying to destroy their village. The team stands and looks at the bound golem. The headman says that this golem was not created by humans, but by the ancients. The headman says that this golem is not even scratched from the attack, because its defense is too great. Toru asks where this monster came from. The headman says that he came from ancient ruins. The golem woke up and immediately rushed to attack everyone around. The headman says that they managed to bind the monster with magic, but he doesn't know how long it will last. Toru thought about it. The guy knows that golems never attack first, and it's almost impossible to rewrite their order. The main character starts walking forward. He's going to come closer and take a look. The headman starts to say something, but does not have time. The monster raises its head and looks at the guy who just came up. Toru also looks at the monster. Suddenly, a bright light began to pour out of the monster's eyes, directed directly at Thora. The guy doesn't move. The headman is worried if everything will be alright with Toru. Kaidi doesn't say anything, just stands there and smiles. Toru looks up with interest and says that this golem is broken. There is a small pit next to the guy from the monster's attack. Kaidi asks what they will do now. Toru says that the golem no longer reacts to orders and all they have to do is smash the monster. The headman's voice is heard shouting about the magic vine. The golem broke free. The vine tore. The monster jumps up. The guy looks at the girl and tells her to stay put. Kaidi understood the guy. The monster towers over Thor's head and begins to spin rapidly with his hands. Toru reaches for his sword. Toru reflects all the attacks of the monster. The headman says he wants to deflect the rays. Kaidi tells him to stand behind her and she will build a wall. One of the light rays flies into Thor's hand. The guy screams. He raises his hand and the blow comes straight to the monster's head. The guy says it hurts him. The monster suddenly jumps up and starts climbing the tree. Toru looks at this and does not understand what is happening. Toru sits down on the ground and says that the monster will not leave him. The main character jumps up and turns out to be on a par with the monster. The monster notices the guy, and he in turn raises his hand to attack the golem with his bare hands. The golem breaks from the tree and flies down, breaking all the branches under it. The monster lands on the ground with a lot of noise. Toru looks down and asks himself if the golem is broken. The golem's head starts spinning and it makes sounds. Toru jumps down from a tree, a sword in his hands. The guy is going to deliver the last blow, because the golem is quite strong. The golem pierces the front of the monster. It makes a sound and looks at the guy. Suddenly, there is a big explosion. Toru is standing in a pit, in the rubble of a golem. Toru goes upstairs. Kaidi already runs up to him and says that the guy was great as always. Toru is walking with his sword on his shoulders. There is a big explosion behind him. The guy says he's hungry. The headman, Frau and Kaidi are looking straight ahead. The headman is surprised at what a superior race can be. Kaidi says her master is like that. Pharaoh says that the master can do anything. Toru stands and looks ahead with a smile. Toru asks the headman if he can feed him lunch. The headman says that he will immediately tell them to set the table. Several fairies were sitting at the table and, bowing their heads, they thanked Mr. Toru for saving their village. The guy awkwardly waved his hands, saying that they shouldn't thank him like that because it wasn't difficult. To this, the fairies replied that if they had not come here, the golem would have already wiped out their village from the face of the earth. Frau's grandfather exclaimed that, as a thank you, they would arrange a festive banquet in their honor tonight. Therefore, he asked the guests to enjoy their hospitality. Toru awkwardly scratched his cheek and agreed. The fairy Frau flew up to Thor and asked him to introduce her family once again. Frau began to represent the fairies from right to left. The head of the village was her grandfather, Jijin. Her grandmother is Banya, her father is Papao, her mother is Mamiri, and her brother is Oatwood. And finally, she introduced herself, the one and only, the servant of the master, Frau. Thor felt a little embarrassed. He thought that the status of a servant was not something to be proud of. And Frau's family applauded, joyfully welcoming a guest into their family. Grandma happily wiped a tear from her cheek and said that she was glad that she had lived to see these days. She would never have thought that she would be able to see such a wonderful person firsthand. Papa said that Frau was able to achieve such success only because of their training, which Mom agreed with. The fairy's brother looked at her and said words of congratulations, because now she would not interfere, to which the girl replied in the affirmative. She said she was the greatest and then exclaimed a question about what her brother had just said. Frau flew up to Thor and asked him how her family was. The guy replied that they were pretty friendly and got along well. Kaidi agreed with the host with a smile on her face. The Frau family members laughed at the same time, awkwardly scratching their heads. Toru, looking at this, wondered why he was starting to feel murderous from them. He wondered if it was definitely Frau's family. The fairy suddenly noticed something, and then turned to her mother with a question about whether she thought it was time to prepare for the feast. Mom agreed and said that then she would go tell everyone in the village. Frau turned to her master and Kaida with the words that there was still a lot of time before the holiday. She asked if the guests would like to take a bath, to which Kaidi replied that it would be nice, and Toru asked if they had such a large bathtub. The fairy replied in the affirmative, saying that there is one just like this house, especially for guests. They've had to accept other races before, so she'll tell them everything. Toru stood with a towel on his hips in front of a large bathroom that was located overlooking the forest. He said it wasn't bad here. The guy went to the tub and added words that it smells good. There were flower petals and fruits floating in the water, which was quite beautiful. Toru looked ahead and said that the view of the forest was also beautiful. He liked it. He scratched his head and thought that he should wash his hair first, when suddenly someone called the guy the owner behind him. Toru turned around in shock, and Kaidi was standing behind him, also wearing a towel. The girl asked if she could wash the guy's back. The guy replied that, although she was a servant, she shouldn't do it, because he could wash himself. Kaidi replied that she wanted to, and then asked if the guy would refuse her if she was in a swimsuit. She took off the towel and asked the guy if he really didn't like her. Toru looked at the girl and, blushing, answered her with words that she was very attractive. The water slowly flowed into a tub with petals and fruits, and the girl, kneeling, washed her master's back. Toru thought it was a bad thing because he couldn't stop thinking about the last time they took a bath together. After all, Kaidi was still a child back then. The guy looked at his servant and thought that she was pretty now, so he could barely contain himself. Kaidi was passionate about washing the gentleman. She said that she was bathing the guy in front too. The guy looked at her in embarrassment and then suddenly noticed that the girl was leaning heavily against him. Toru was very surprised by this, and the girl continued to wash the guy's chest. The young man thought that he felt something big, soft, and elastic on his back. He wondered if the girl was washing him with her body. She was also languidly breathing in his ear. Toru tensed at the touch and thought that it was bad, and when the girl's hand fell on his stomach, he screamed. The guy exclaimed that he would bathe himself next, which surprised the girl. Kaidi hesitated awkwardly and apologized if the gentleman didn't like it. Toru replied that, on the contrary, he liked it very much. After that, he sat in the tub and relaxed. He sighed happily, talking about how good it was there. Toru looked at the girl questioningly and asked if she would wash, to which Kaidi replied that she had only come to wash the master's back. The guy looked at the girl and then asked if she was cold there. He told her to climb up to him, to lie down together. The girl accepted the host's invitation and went into the water thanks to Thor. She said she would join him right away. The two of them found themselves sitting side by side in the warm water. They talked about how it even smells great there, which is very relaxing. Suddenly, something touched the guy in the water, which made him a little surprised. Toru grabbed it with his hand and pulled it out, thinking about what it was, when suddenly the girl screamed. The guy let go of something when he realized it was a fox's tail. He apologized, to which the girl replied that everything was fine. She said if the guy wants to, he can touch it. Kaidi turned her back on the guy, and he thought that for beastmen, tails are intimate places, and they don't really want to be touched there. The guy replied to the girl in front of him that he would touch only a little, with which the fox agreed. Toru began to examine the girl's tail. He said he's usually so fluffy, but the water makes him look so thin. The girl blushed a little from touching the tail. The guy ran his hand up to the tip of his tail, saying that he was even thinner there. Kaidi screamed at this. The young man let go of the girl's tail and thanked her for allowing him to touch it. Kaidi was confused, and the guy, noticing that the girl was blushing a lot, wondered if everything was okay with her. The guy looked up when he suddenly noticed something. He called out the girl's name and told her to look. Through the trees in the forest, a clear sky could be seen, through which a large number of stars were flying. Toru and Kaide stared at the starfall in fascination. They talked about how the view from there was just beautiful. These two will never forget what they saw together. Meanwhile, Sain and his companions were heading somewhere. One of the girls asked how long they had to go. The team walked under the scorching sun. She said the words that she was too hot. Sain told the girl to shut up, because they had already figured it out without her. Lisa said that if the guy had found a holy sword in that temple, they wouldn't have had to walk in such heat. Sain looked at the girl irritably. He was mentally cursing at her because he didn't even know how the guy wanted to find the sword. The guy thought that according to the rumors of his native kingdom, he is the most worthless hero in its history. Sain was determined because he needed to fix it all. He didn't have time to delay because he needed the sword right here and now. While Nei was moving on, shielding her hand from the sun, she suddenly noticed something. The girl turned to her team and called out to Sain. Nei pointed towards the city and offered to rest there. Sain looked back at the girls with displeasure and thought that they had almost reached the temple. He decided that the girls were pretty exhausted, and so was he. The guy replied to the girls that he was against it, so they could head to the city. The girls exclaimed joyfully. She walked forward energetically, and the guy thought that the girl was starting to piss him off more and more. After a while, Sain's team reached the city, where it was quite busy. Lisa, Sora, and Sain stared at something in front of them with terrible disgust. The guy asked what it was. There were several plates of food on the table in front of them. They were various larvae and insects. The girl exclaimed that she would not eat it. Sora uttered the words in shock that she did not think that the locals ate like this. Lisa covered her mouth and said she'd pass. The guy agreed that it really looks creepy. Suddenly, she grabbed a spoon and shoved it into her mouth, wishing herself a pleasant appetite. Sain was in complete shock. The girl was surprised to say that, although it looks creepy, it is actually very tasty. While the girl continued to actively eat food, the guy was shocked to think that she had eaten it and she even liked it. Sain covered his mouth in disgust and thought that now he would never lay a finger on her in his life. He decided it was better to get rid of her, and quickly. Sawara said the words that she would rather order bread for herself. Lisa agreed with the girl, and Sain thought that they reacted normally. She asked the guy if he would eat, because the food was getting cold. The guy grabbed a spoon and replied that he knew. He was very hungry, and if he didn't eat, then who knows when he would get a chance to have a snack next time. The guy swore and thought it didn't matter, because he was a hero and there were no barriers for him. He actively began to eat. After a while, they finally reached the temple. Sain's team was standing in front of the entrance to the temple. She turned to the guy and asked if he was ill. The guy bent over and trembled. He exclaimed that the girl had better shut up. Sain was very tense. He clenched his teeth because he had a very bad stomachache and needed to go to the toilet. The guy looked at the girl and thought about why he had to eat the same thing as her. He wondered why she was so calm, where the justice was. Sen was barely holding on, clutching his stomach. He thought that they were already there, and he only needed to pick up the holy sword. They came to a tall door. The guy tried to push it to open it, but nothing happened. Lisa looked at the guy and asked if everything was okay. Nei noticed that the guy was shaking all over, and Sawara offered to leave this place. Sain frowned heavily. He mentally cursed at the girls and told them to shut up. They didn't even know how much the guy wanted to go to the bathroom. The tall doors in front of the team moved, and the girls were glad that they had finally opened. The guys went inside the temple to pick up the holy sword. The guy was still shaking and barely moving. He looked at the sword and thought that it was so far away. The guy was thinking that if he relaxed for even a minute, the feces would flow down his legs. Sain struggled to move towards the holy sword, thinking that there was still just a little bit left. His legs were shaking. Sora and Lisa stood behind the guy and joyfully shouted words of support to him. The guy mentally told them to shut up. With a smile, Sain grabbed his sword with his hand and pulled. He was thinking about how the sword would finally take hold. The girls stood not far from the guy and watched as he tried with great zeal to pull out the holy weapon. Sain was trembling all over and cursing in his mind because he put all his strength into his grip. However, if he tries to strain a little more, his backside will relax. Nei called out to the guy and headed in his direction, saying that she would help him pull out the sword. The girl ran up to the guy and grabbed the handle, and Sain was shocked. He suddenly swore at the girl. He shouted at her to stop. The moment the sword finally moved, the guy couldn't contain his need. The holy sword was completely removed from its place, which caused the guy and the girl to fly back. Lisa and Sawara exclaimed joyfully when they managed to get the sword. Nei turned to the girls with a smile. Sain was finally able to relax at this moment. He exhaled with great pleasure. Moments later, when the girls realized what had happened, loud screams rang out from the temple. At the same time, Toru and Kaidi were in the village of Fei, where they were surrounded by a large number of local residents. Some fairies were dancing, some were drinking drinks and talking. Everyone was having fun, as was Toru. The guy drank the drink and joyfully uttered words about what the meat of fairies really turns out to be. Toru looked at Kaidi, who was sitting next to him. The girl agreed with the guy, saying that the drink has a pleasant texture and rich taste. Frau flew up to the guy with a bottle in her hands. She, pouring a drink to the guy, said that he drinks so much. The guy replied that they were just small bottles. Frau waved her hand, pointing to the side, and said that here was the food. Fairies with large plates headed towards the guest. They set a sumptuous table in front of the guests. The guy picked up a fork and a knife and wished him a pleasant appetite. Toru and Kaidi began to eat with gusto while Frau was flying nearby. Suddenly, someone approached the guy with an offer to pour him a drink. It was Papao, who was holding a bottle in his hands. The fairy's father asked the guy how Frau was, and if everything was okay with her. The guy replied that she had only recently joined the team, so he did not know what had happened before. Toru and Frau's father were talking with smiles on their faces. Papao said he would be glad if the guy would continue to look after the girl. The guy replied that he would try, and then asked the man if he was satisfied that Frau was a servant. The man frowned slightly. He suddenly exclaimed, "What is the guy talking about anyway? Because they, fairies, are servants of a higher race. Only their loyalty shows their status." He continued to cheerfully say that for this reason he doesn't mind. Frau Milo told her father that she was embarrassed. Toru laughed, thinking about how funny fairies were. Suddenly, others flew up to the fairy's father, saying that they also wanted to talk to Toru. Oatwood said it wasn't fair that only the father was talking to the guy. Toru watched the fairies actively discussing something. He suddenly frowned because he remembered his childhood. The guy suddenly got up from the table with words of apology because he needed to leave for a while. Papa Fairy asked if the guy needed to be escorted, to which he replied with a polite refusal. Kaide looked at the departing guy with excitement. It was night in the fairy village. There was a big feast under the trees. Toru sat and watched from above. The guy was carefully watching how everyone was having fun when someone approached him. Kaidi called out to the owner, who called the girl by name. The fox sat down next to the guy. She asked Toru if he wanted some water. The guy accepted the glass and thanked the girl. The guy was silent, so Kaidi asked him why he looked so devastated. The guy sighed with an awkward smile and said the words that he couldn't hide it. The girl smiled and nodded, saying that she was always watching her master. Toru turned around and told me that when he watches Frau's family, it reminds him of his days with his mother. He was wondering why that was. Kaidi, after a short silence, asked the guy if she could ask how his mother died. The guy plunged into memories and began to tell. He was 15 at the time. He returned home, and she was already bleeding, so she died. They were the richest in the village, so everyone said that they had been robbed. Toru said that he had no one else besides her. He didn't know how to live on his own. He said with a smile that only Lisa supported him. The guy said that he lived only for her, because he had no other reason to stay in this world. Kaida sadly asked if the girl had really left him afterwards. The guy answered in the affirmative. Toru told Kaida that the girl chose the hero Sain and, naturally, this shocked him. The guy frowned and continued talking about how he thought he wasn't good enough for her. Kaidi looked at the guy sadly and then hugged him to comfort him. That's how the night ended. The next day, they went to explore the ruins of the temple. The guys were standing next to the stone ruins. Toru looked at Frau and asked about the fact that there was no golem here in the first place. The fairy replied in the affirmative. The guy turned to Kaida with a question about whether there are any artifacts here. He asked if the girl could check the score. The girl replied that she would check it out now. Frau turned to the guy with a question about what she could do. Toru thought a little. The guy told the fairy to just go and raise her level. Frau immediately flew away with the words that she would do it with pleasure. Toru's team began to explore the space around them. Toru was examining the golems' bodies, and Kaide was looking at something. The girl suddenly called out to the owner saying that there was something there. Toru looked at the girl. He came closer and pushed the broken golem aside and was surprised. In front of them was the entrance to the temple. Kaidi asked the guy what they would do, to which Toru replied that of course they would investigate. They went down the stairs that led to the cave. The guy and the girl saw the light. They came closer and noticed that there was a huge magic seal on the ground under their feet. Kaede took a closer look and then uttered the words that this was a teleportation circle. Toru asked how she knew if she had already seen similar ones. They sat down next to the circle, and the girl answered in the negative. She said she had a feeling that she could read him, and he could take them very, very far. The guy asked the girl why the circle was still active. Kaede replied by saying that she thinks the circle is fueled by the mana that flows in these lands. Toru assumed that if they stepped on it, they would be transported somewhere. He asked if the girl knew where exactly. Kaede replied that she only knew that the circle was working. This means that the second one is also still active. She went on to say that, therefore, it is possible to move between circles. Toru looked at the circle and thought that, not knowing where it leads, it is dangerous to go there. However, it may be that there is a whole mountain of treasures at the other end, and something unprecedented may also be waiting for them. Toru turned to Kaeda and asked the girl if she really didn't care what was there. The girl smiled and answered the guy with words that she would just go with him to the ends of the earth and would not leave him for anything. The guy looked at her with a smile and said that, then their next departure point was predetermined. There was a loud cry of denial. Toru and Kaidi were surrounded by fairies on all sides, who asked them to stay a little longer, or even better, to stay forever. Frau's father, hugging Thora by the shoulder, begged her to stay at least another 30 years. Toru shook off the fairies and said it took too long. Suddenly, there was a shout for everyone to be silent. All the fairies from the guy's body were thrown in different directions. There was a Frau flying next to Thor who asked the fairies if they had forgotten that they were servants of a higher race. She said that the gentleman also likes this place, so they just need to prepare for his next visit. She also told them not to forget to spend it with dignity. The fairies lowered their heads and agreed that Frau was right and they should let their guests go. The villagers let the guy go while he thanked the Frau. She replied that she was now embarrassed in front of the fairies. Panta was just making the usual sounds. After some time, the Toru team got ready to go. They were saying goodbye to the villagers. Frau shouted that they would definitely come back. The villagers waved back at the departing guests. The guys went to the cave. Toru said that they did not know what would happen next. They might even get into a swamp or something, so they need to stick together. Kaidi and Frau replied that they understood and grabbed the guy. Toru confidently looked ahead and said that they were leaving. They stepped into the circle to meet new adventures. Thor let his curiosity get the better of him. He's gone somewhere he doesn't know himself. At this time, Sain was holding a sword in his hands. He was laughing as he finally got his hands on the sacred weapon. He was just beautiful. The guy has long wanted to get at least one sacred weapon. He almost succeeded the first time, and so did the second, but on the third there was a little embarrassment. She called out to the guy and asked that since they had the sword, then things would go up, to which Sain told her to keep quiet. Lisa said that she had heard that demons were hiding in the city. She asked when they would go to destroy them. Sain replied that as soon as they take the first step, they will immediately begin to act. Sora hesitated and asked if they could with their current level. She asked if they should practice. Suddenly, Nei exclaimed for the girl to stop. She said that demons were about to attack them, and the girl was thinking about training. Nei told them to look at the residents because they are all scared. The girl said that they should help them, and as soon as possible. Sawara agreed, but added the words that if they die, then what help is there? Nei asked if they really had to abandon the residents. Sain was completely at a loss. He cursed in his mind that girls always end up like this. He was thinking that they were in the middle of the human lands, so there couldn't be high-level demons here. Sain thought that he was no longer interested in her, so he would get rid of her soon. And Sawara is attractive and can heal, but she is too predictable and tries to help everyone. The guy thought that in this situation he could only rely on Lisa. She is obedient and, after all, was with Toru. He decided it was worth keeping her close to him. Sain looked at the girls and thought that they all had the 40th level. If he was going to defeat the Demon Lord, it would be better to get rid of them and get stronger companions. The guy suddenly shouted the words for the girls to stop, which surprised them very much. Suddenly, Lisa got up and said that it was too noisy outside, so she would go and see what was there. The girl opened the window and saw people running screaming down the street. Lisa turned to her team and shouted that the people outside were running from something. The guy asked if the demons had attacked. Sain thought that they shouldn't show up in these lands at all, so why are they here? The guy said he didn't care anymore. He waved his sword and said that they were going to destroy them. The girls confidently agreed. Sain walked confidently and thought that everything was perfect. They will save the city from the demons and get the proper fame and attention. Also, this is a good opportunity to test his sacred sword. A large number of demons were heading to the city, destroying everything in their path and setting the city on fire. They brandished weapons, killing all the men, and they took the women with them. They stole food and everything of value. The demons were led forward by their leader, who, with a huge weapon in his hands, told his brothers to enjoy this feast. Sain's team was watching the demons from the roof of a tall building. They found their target. Sain told Lisa that her task was simple. She needed to use magic to the left and right of the demon. The guy will take advantage of their confusion. Lisa understood the order, and Nei offered to finish with them as soon as possible. Suddenly, Saina called out to Sawara, who said that they should first take care of the evacuation of the residents. The guy exclaimed that he didn't care how many people died, because fame was the main thing for him, so the girl needed to follow orders. Sain looked at the girl and asked if she understood. Sora hesitantly replied in the affirmative. The demons were looting the city. They found a place where there was plenty of food. They were told to take the women with them and leave. Suddenly, they noticed something. Suddenly, flames flew at the demons. They began to scream loudly. One demon turned to General Darm, saying that they were bombarded with magic from all directions, and they could not determine the location of the magician. The general cursed and asked how they could attack them at all. General Darm looked up and saw flaming balls flying at them, which attacked the demons. Together with them, the general was suddenly attacked by Sain, who quickly hit the demon on the head with his sword. The guy thought that a surprise attack was a cool thing, and the demon was also resisting. He thought it was better for the demon to die now if he didn't want to die in agony. Suddenly, the guy noticed that the demon blocked his attack with his hand. The general was still standing on his feet. Sain was shocked by what was happening, and Darm, swinging his fist, asked who the guy was. After that, he struck a powerful blow at the guy. Sain flew far into the wall from this. The guy coughed violently and then fell off the wall to the ground. At the same moment, a demon approached him with a weapon in his hands. He was surprised that the guy was still alive. It was amazing. He asked the guy if he was a hero. Sain tried to get up, asking a question in response about what if he really is a hero. General Darm replied by saying that it was nothing special, just that the Lord asked them to play with him well if they saw him. Sain looked up at the demon in front of him and was very surprised because there wasn't a scratch on him after Lisa's magic. Sain, in a stupor of fear, thought about what level the demon had and why he was in this place at all. Suddenly, a powerful blow flew at General Darm, from which both Sain and the demon were thrown into shock. Someone was actively attacking the demons. It turned out that these adventurers were fighting against the leader of the demons. Others urged them to actively help them. The demon leader turned his attention to the people who were approaching. He shouted for the adventurers to fight them first. The demons charged. A major battle began in which all those present took part. Sain looked at what was happening with hope and thought that they were strong. That's what the adventurers of this city are like. The guy suddenly noticed the girl in the hat and thought that he had definitely seen her somewhere. Sain saw another person, after which he realized that there were not only A-ranked but also S-ranked adventurers in the city. People were approaching the demon leader, shouting that he would not be well. The demon replied that humans had no chance against them, so he told them to approach. One of the adventurers swung his sword using a deadly tornado attack. The other used earth spikes. The demon leader was able to quickly dodge the attacks in such a way that not even a scratch remained on him. The girl in the hat was shocked. He exclaimed the words that her magic did not work on him. The leader of the demons, dodging another attack, told the people that they were infuriating him. The attacking adventurer was shocked. He charged again. However, when he swung for another blow, his body was split by a demon attack. From such a sudden attack, the adventurer did not have time to react. The demon leader, holding his weapon in his hands, looked at the other adventurers, saying that they were weaklings. Suddenly, another attack cut through the air. A small adventurer stood in front of a demon that practically didn't budge. The man looked up at the monster in front of him in shock. The man was instantly knocked to the floor by the attack of the demon leader, who stood up laughing and asked who would be next. The monster looked towards the girl in the hat, who still hadn't attacked. She swung her weapon, using a balloon attack several times in a row. However, the demon calmly headed towards her, ignoring the attacks. The girl fell to the ground in confusion, wondering why her attacks didn't work. By this point, the demon had approached her with a smirk. He asked if something was wrong, and then suggested that the girl probably couldn't hurt him. The adventurers screamed out of fear, and then a puddle of liquid formed under her, which made the demon laugh. The general turned around with words about how nasty adventurers are. He told his subordinates that they could do whatever they wanted with the girl, since she was theirs now. Immediately, the demons rushed to the girl, and General Darm began to look around in search of that hero. He saw Sain at the wall, who had just got up from the ground and was walking somewhere. The demon leader quickly approached the guy and delivered a powerful kick, driving Sain into the wall. The guy screamed loudly from this, and the demon asked if he was really trying to escape. He asked Sain if he was really a hero. The demon general called the guy pathetic, and then asked about the guy's level. Sain, lying on the ground, began to mumble that he was level 63. The demons laughed loudly, and the general asked if the guy really decided to kill him at his pathetic 63rd level. He said Sain was a fool, not a hero, and then asked if dementia was the guy's motto. The demons nearby called him a joker. Sain was furious. He thought that the demon would pay for mocking him, because the guy would take revenge on him. At that moment, a blow flew into General Darm's head from her, who loudly shouted the guy's name. She turned to Sain and shouted for him to get up. Sora also came running to him, who began to heal the guy, and Lisa, who tried to calm the guy down. Sain was shouting that the girls were late. He asked where they were at all. He was thinking that these useless women couldn't do anything, when suddenly, an idea came to him. Sain waved his hand, pointing to the side, and told her that this demon was hers now. Sora was very surprised by this. She asked what the guy meant, to which he shouted that everything was as she had heard it. He told them to detain the demon. The guy jumped up and shouted that objections were not accepted, because he was a hero and his life was the most important thing. The girls were completely confused by Sain's behavior. They tried to ask what to do. Suddenly, at this moment, Nae exclaimed that she would try to come up with something, and Sain, leaning on Sora and Lisa, stood up and shouted for the girl to buy them time to escape. Nae attacked General Dharma with her foot, but he easily caught her, saying that it was not bad, but far from ideal. These words shocked the girl. The demon leader quickly threw the girl to the ground, causing her to scream loudly. Lisa anxiously called out to her, but Sain told her not to look back and go faster. Sain glanced at the girl behind him, mentally saying goodbye. He thought about the fact that even though she came out with her body, he was tired of listening to her objections every time. While General Darm was holding her leg surrounded by other demons, the girl was calling Sain by name. She said the words that it was probably a joke while her team was leaving her. At the same time, one of the passages was heavily blocked with stones. Suddenly, several beams cut through this blockage, and after that the stones flew in different directions and a guy appeared from the other side. Kaidi exclaimed in surprise and asked Toru what it was. The guy replied that it was just his new technique. He used the Dragoon's ability. With its help he tried to make many inconspicuous cuts. The Frau replied that everything was dusty now. Thor turned to Frau with the words that she should inspect the area. The fairy replied that it would take a couple of minutes. The guy rubbed his forehead with his hand and said that it was hot in this place. He assumed that they had moved somewhere to the south. Suddenly, Frau called out to her master saying that she could see the light. The guy asked if there was a city there. The fairy looked closer and said that everything was in smoke. The girl assumed that something was burning there. Kaidi sniffed and reported that she could smell burning, as well as blood and fresh flesh. The guy wondered what had happened there. He shouted the words that we need to go there as soon as possible. He told Frau to take them there. Toru's team rushed with all speed to follow Frau. While they were running, Toru summoned Roska. The fairy exclaimed that she saw the entrance, and the team ran up to the entrance to the city. A picture of a burning, ruined city opened up in front of them. They went inside and looked around. Kaidi said the words about how terrible it was. Frau wondered who had done it. Everything was on fire, buildings were destroyed and looted. Toru was looking at what was happening with anger when he suddenly noticed a charred body at his feet. He clenched his teeth and said they were demons. Suddenly, someone began to approach Thor. The two were talking among themselves about the fact that they were still alive here. Two demons with weapons in their hands said that only they were not people, but beautiful animals. They noticed the fairy, so they offered to catch her and make her their toy. Toru looked at them and noticed the collars. They seemed familiar to him, when suddenly he realized that they were people in front of him. The guy exclaimed the words that he would kill them, to which the robbers asked if the guy was sure that he would succeed. One began to approach with the words that he would see what Toru was capable of. At the same moment, a quick blow pierced him. It was Kaide who used the explosive incision attack. From such a powerful attack, the enemy received serious damage, flying back at high speed. The second guy called out to his brother in shock. He turned around and thought about what kind of magic it was, because he didn't see anything. At the same moment, a powerful blow also struck the second opponent. Frau used a slaughterhammer attack. The fairy slung her weapon over her shoulder, calling the defeated guys weaklings, which Kaidi agreed with. The fox turned to the owner with the words that they should calm down first. She offered to help the survivors, which the guy agreed to. Toru stared in front of him in shock. He slapped his cheek and thought that the girls were right. The guy decided that he needed to calm down, he should not give in to anger. Toru decided that it was better to redirect him to the demons. He was sure that they would save the city. They decided to split up and rescue the survivors. Toru turned to Kaida with the words that she should go to the east and Frau to the west. He told Roska to take care of the demons. The guy decided to take over the center. They set out to save as many as they could. The team decided to use their power for the benefit of people. Demons have invaded the city. They walked the streets looking for people who hadn't run away and were hiding. One of the demons looked into the house, smiling broadly. He uttered the words that he had found them. There was a girl with a child sitting outside the door. She screamed loudly when she saw the demon. He grabbed her by the hair and dragged her, causing her to scream that she was in pain. The demon dragged the girl along the ground with the words that they were going to have fun. The girl begged not to do it. Suddenly, the demon received a powerful sword attack right on the head. This made him scream loudly. Toru fiercely completed his attack, and the girl fell to the ground screaming. The guy came up to her and asked if she was okay. He sat down in front of the girl, and she replied that she was fine. Toru explained that there are no demons on that road, so if they go there, they will find a place to hide. The girl turned to the child with the words that he should not cry, because the uncle would deal with the demons. Toru asked them if they could walk at all, or if he should accompany them, to which the girl exclaimed that they would walk on their own. The guy stood up and stroked the girl's head, saying that it was nice then. After that, he quickly sped off. The city was in chaos. The demons were making a mess when suddenly they noticed something. There was a shout that someone was approaching. They were at a loss and looked around carefully. Toru was rushing across the street with a sword in his hands. He instantly destroyed all the demons in his path. The guy was thinking that the closer he was to the city center, the more demons there were. He assumed their commander was there. Along the way, he noticed a showdown to the side. It was the city guards who were attacked by demons. Toru swung, and then threw his sword in their direction. The weapon knocked down one demon along the way and stuck into the wall. The other demon managed to duck. These actions attracted the attention of the other demons. Toru managed to deal with several demons in a couple of seconds. In another second, he reached the others. In 4 seconds, the guy managed to deal with all the demons that were next to him. The next moment, the same number of opponents rushed at him from different directions. Toru swung. After another second, the guy struck several blows that hit all the attackers. The city guards watched in shock. They were shocked that the guy had defeated all the demons in the blink of an eye. Toru asked the knights if they were guards, to which they replied in the affirmative. The guy explained that they were a group of travelers who would deal with the demons, so they should evacuate. The guy quickly set off on his way, shouting the words that he was counting on the knights. The man looked after the guy and said that he had heard about a group of travelers. Another also confirmed these words. He said that they were the first in history to receive the group title of heroes. They also saved the kingdom of Armand from deadly ants. At the same time, someone came running with a report. One demon shouted to the general that they had lost control of the east as everyone there was dead. Darm asked what had happened, and the second demon exclaimed that the west had also fallen. The demon general was thinking about what happened there. Did the real hero show up? Suddenly, the wall behind the demon shattered into small pieces, causing the demons next to it to fall. General Darm turned to look at what was happening, where he saw a young guy standing with a sword in his hands and looking at him. Toru said the words that it was like the center of the city. He turned to the demon and asked if he was their commander. The demon answered in the affirmative and then asked the guy who he was. Toru tightened his grip on his sword. The guy confidently pointed his blade at the demon and replied that he was a simple warrior. The general threw back the girl he was holding and asked the guy about his words. He said the guy would be braver than that hero. At that moment, Toru turned his attention to the girl who was thrown away by the demon. While she was falling, the guy recognized her. He immediately rushed to her to catch her. The demon general didn't even have time to react. He thought that the guy was fast. Toru was holding a girl in his arms who was badly injured. He called out to her by name, who was breathing heavily. The demon asked the guy if he knew her. He said that the girl is a friend of the hero, and he left her to be torn to pieces in order to escape himself. Toru shouted for the demon to be silent. The guy turned to the demon with a warning that he should not say anything more. Otherwise, he will turn the demon into mincemeat in the blink of an eye. General Darm just silently chuckled at these words. Toru was lost in memories of her. How she once approached him and asked why he was sad. The guy replied with words about what he was going through, what was burdening them, which surprised the girl. Toru said that they already have the 40th level, but he remains on the 20th. He considered himself useless. The guy lowered his head and said he thought he should leave the band. She was very surprised. The girl swore at the guy and kicked him hard, causing him to fall into the water with a surprised cry. Toru jumped up and asked why she hit him, to which the girl replied that it was because the guy was a pessimist and he should stop thinking like that. She held out her hand to him, saying that the difference in their levels was decent, but so what? After all, they will always help the guy to lift him up. She said the words that they would all help. Toru took her hand, calling her by name. After that, the girl asked if he really thought that Lisa would like his departure. Toru exclaimed in embarrassment, asking what she had to do with it. She replied that they often spend time together, and she has been watching them for a long time, so the guy should not deny it. The girl asked Toru if he liked Lisa, and then added words that if so, then the guy should try at least for her sake. Toru replied in the affirmative, but added words that he was afraid that the girl would definitely reject him. Nei replied that she did not think so, and Thor should be a man and admit it. The guy exclaimed that she was a girl and she should behave accordingly. Nei lowered her head and, after a short silence, replied that she did not expect such words from Toru. She sighed slightly. However, she immediately began kicking the guy with the words that it was time to stop talking and go train. Toru replied so that she would not attack so suddenly. The guy, clenching his teeth, wondered why this happened. The demons gradually approached the guy with questions about what was wrong with the guy. Someone said he was just in a stupor, so the demons suggested just getting rid of him. The demons began to swing their weapons at the guy, shouting for him to shut up and disappear. At the same moment, Toru rose from the ground and cut through all the demons with one strong blow of his sword. General Darm asked the guy if he was really an ordinary warrior, since his level should definitely be more than 100th. The demon uttered the words that he had not seen such strong people for a long time. He invited the guy to fight. Toru tightened his grip on the hilt of the sword and replied that he did not want to take long because he was worried about her, so he would win quickly. General Darm called out to the guy saying that she had asked him a question, which caused Toru's displeasure. The demon exclaimed the words that did the guy really think he could defeat him. He called him a joker. However, in the next instant, the demon leader lost the hand in which he held his weapon. He didn't even have time to react, and then he screamed about his hand. Thor had told him to stop talking while the demon was seriously injured. General Darm swung his remaining arm to attack, as a crunch was heard. However, Toru was unharmed. An ice wall was used against the demon, which caused it to freeze in place. After that, another attack followed. The ice split into pieces, and the demon flew far into the wall from the impact. Kaida appeared nearby, apologizing for being late. There was also a Frau next to her who informed her that she was almost done and only this place remained. Toru looked at the girls and thanked them. He turned to Kaida and asked him to heal her. The fox immediately went to execute the order. Toru looked at the demon and said the words that he would deal with him. The general was holding his head at that moment. The leader of the demons thought that there were now 3 opponents, and they could inflict heavy damage on him. He decided that since that was the case, he would not hold back. He shouted for the demonic armor to answer his call. At the same moment, the demon's weapon, which was lying behind Toru, took off and headed towards its owner. It flew to the demon and became part of his hand. The demon told the guy to get ready, because now he will show him the full strength of the general of the army of the demon lord, the lady. Toru braced himself and thought that the demonic armor seemed to be of the same type as the sacred weapon. The guy decided that in this scenario, he would get rid of the demon before he was completely covered by it. Toru charged. He swung to strike, but the demon was able to block him with his weapon. The guy was amazed, and the demon asked why he was so surprised. After all, the real surprise will come later. The demon general swung and struck. Toru tried to block it with a divine blow. The demon used a fang attack directly on the guy, which sent Thor flying back after receiving a blow. He was slammed into a wall and expressed his displeasure. The demon attacked again, but the guy managed to dodge. A battle began, in which they quickly moved around the building from side to side. Toru slowed down and thought that the demon's reaction speed had also increased. He was thinking that they were now on an equal footing with him in terms of characteristics. The demon headed towards the guy, telling him something interesting. The demon's magic axe, the Proto, can only be used when wearing demonic armor. And there are many weapons like this. He added words that every owner of such a thing is a great risk. Toru didn't answer that. The guy was thinking that the demon was injured enough, which means that his regeneration has increased. The general threw a large stone at the Tora, saying that the weapon also increases the level of the owner by 30%. The guy cut a stone flying at him, and it was followed by a demon attack. He shouted that his level was now 195th, and launched a powerful attack. The girls covered themselves from the shock wave in shock. Frau called out to Kaidi, saying that the enemy was strong. She asked if they should help the owner. The fox smiled contentedly, saying that the fairy is new here, so she should just watch. And all because their owner is the strongest person. At that moment, Toru was standing, blocking the demon's attack. The general exclaimed in shock the words about how the guy was able to stop his attack. He asked Toru who he was. The guy held on tenaciously. He held his sword tightly and then swung it, causing the demon to fly back. The general did not attack, but Toru began to approach. He first assumed that the demon had retreated. The guy thought that with such size and speed, the demon's fighting skills were impressive. He was a general for a reason. The demon in front of him did not intend to give up either. He was definitely a monster. Toru thought that the opponent also has fast regeneration, so weak attacks are useless. He will use a combination of his strongest punches on him. The guy decided that this way he would have an advantage, and the demon would definitely not be able to dodge this. Toru and the general stood opposite each other and watched intently. In the blink of an eye, the guy was in front of the demons, piercing him with his sword. He was determined. The general was shocked that he was wounded. He assumed that the guy was using the speed limit, but dismissed the idea because he didn't feel anything. The demon thought that he still had a chance. He needed to use demonic power. However, his arm was injured. The next moment, the demon was stunned because of his heart, which the guy was holding in his hand. Toru found a gap in the general's demonic armor. The demon couldn't figure out how the guy made so many movements in a split second. The demon general fell to the ground in front of the guy with the heart in his hands. The battle was over. In addition to skills, basic characteristics are also increased. Earlier, Toru turned out to have several new professions. Now he used two at once, a dragoon and a great thief. Dragoon gave a weakness detection in order to find the magic core. The great thief gave stealth in order to cover the distance unnoticed. The demon turned to the guy and told him to kill him because he was defeated. Toru agreed, asking if the demon had the last words. The general replied that he only had one question: what was the guy's level? Toru frowned slightly. The guy looked at the demon and replied that he had a 300th level, which shocked the opponent. The general laughed, and then said that the difference between them was great, so the guy won. That's the real strength of the 300th level. After the end of the battle, it began to rain heavily. Toru and Kaidi sat silently on a bench in the building. The door opened, which attracted the guy's attention. He got up and asked the man leaving the room how the girl was. The man replied that the potion that Toru gave her seemed to work. The condition is already much better. However, the girl will sleep for a while. The potion will heal her wounds and bones, but it all takes time. She was very lucky that she didn't have such severe injuries. The man said he was done, so he was going to leave. He said that if you need anything, you need to let him know. Toru thanked him. The guy entered the room, walked over and looked at her, who was lying unconscious on the bed. Toru examined her carefully, and then sat down on a chair next to the bed. He noticed that her broken arm had recovered. The guy didn't think that those potions would ever be useful to him. He was glad that he had sold only a few. Toru said the words that it was good that the girl was not in danger. Behind him, Kaidi replied that she was sleeping so peacefully. The guy turned to Kaede and said that it was all thanks to her magic. He thanked the girl. Kaidi smiled awkwardly and replied that it was not worth it, because she was always at the service of her master. The girl turned to the guy and said that if he didn't mind, could she use the assessment? The guy agreed, so Kaide quickly applied the assessment skill on the girl in front of her. Kaide suddenly exclaimed and rubbed her eyes. Toru asked what was wrong with her, to which the girl asked her master to come out with her. They went out into the hallway to talk. Kaidi informed the guy about the brainwashing, which made him very shocked. The girl said that she has such a status, and most likely someone used magic or other means to impose their thoughts on her. The guy staggered back and asked the girl again that she had been brainwashed. Toru was completely at a loss to figure out who was capable of such a thing at all, as the image of a guy came to his mind. He couldn't believe it could be Sain, because no matter how bad he was, the guy couldn't do this to a childhood friend. Kaidi came closer and called out to her master, but he remained silent. Toru apologized to the girl and said that he needed to be alone. The girl looked away, accepting the order. She left, and the guy was left alone in the hallway. Toru stood and thought about the girl. If only he'd known it would turn out this way. He was very angry. The guy thought that in that case he would have killed Sain. There was anger and determination in his eyes. After a while, morning came. Kaede and Panto were dozing on a chair by the door, and Toru was sitting in front of the bed. Finally, she opened her eyes a crack and mumbled something barely legible. The guy called out the girl's name and asked how she was. Kai jumped up and asked if the girl was awake. She asked a question about where she was, and then addressed the guy by name. Toru joyfully exclaimed the words that it was him. The girl stared at the ceiling in silence, and then the guy helped her sit down. Toru said that the girl's wounds can open, so she shouldn't make any sudden movements. Nei sat down and, lowering her head, agreed. She asked if the guy really got rid of her, which surprised Thora. He asked if she was talking about Sina. The girl said that the demons were too strong, so Sain ordered her to detain them. She continued to talk about how the guy looked at her as he left, as if he got rid of her. Nei said she must have imagined it. The girl looked at Thora and called his name. Nei asked the guy what was wrong with his face. Nei asked if it wasn't okay to be useful for the sake of the hero group, White Fang. She was glad that Toru was alive, because they could now find a team and travel together again. Toru was silent for a while, and then said the words that the truth was likely to disappoint the girl. However, he couldn't look at it anymore. Toru informed the girl in front of him that she had been brainwashed. Nei calmly looked away, accepting the answer. But she immediately started talking about how she liked Sain so much. The girl knew that something was wrong with her thoughts. It was a very strange feeling for her. She looked at Thora with tears in her eyes and said the words that her head was a mess and she no longer understood anything. Toru, Kaede, Frau, and even Ponte were completely shocked by what was happening. Toru fell silent. And then he said the words that, at the moment, he had only one option to put her out of her misery. Toru placed in front of the girl the best potion to remove curses. According to the doctor, it should help, and if the girl drinks it, she will feel better. The guy explained that if her actions under brainwashing differ from her initial behavior, then this will have a huge impact on the psyche. In the worst-case scenario, the girl will just go crazy. He left the potion with the words that he leaves the choice to her, but if she does not want to use it, she must return it. The guy got up from his chair and with the words that he would not bother her and she could take her time with the choice, everyone left the room. The girl, being alone in the room in silence, was holding a potion in her hands. The guys left the room and stood in the hallway. Kaidi asked the owner about that. Why doesn't he rest too? Because he doesn't look well. Toru replied that everything was fine, besides he won't sleep anyway. Suddenly, a loud scream rang out from the room, which attracted the attention of the guys. They immediately rushed into the room. She was rolling on the floor, screaming, holding her head. Toru and Kaidi were shocked by what they saw. Kaidi sat down next to the girl and told her to hold on because she would help her. Nai continued to scream, and Kaidi hugged the girl's head and used the healing wave skill. After that, she gradually calmed down and came to her senses. Toru looked at the empty vessel and realized that she had drunk everything. Kaidi was helping the girl calm down, and Toru was sitting next to her and calling her by name, when he was suddenly very surprised. With tears in her eyes, she began to close her eyes and scream so that the guy would not look at her. Toru was shocked. The girl began to talk about how she was now defiled. She began to apologize many times for those words. She said she had done a terrible thing. Toru was in a great shock, and the girl continued to say that she had betrayed her own heart and boyfriend, that she was bad and she should not live now. Toru shouted at her to stop. He said it wasn't her fault because she had been brainwashed and had acted against her will. She called the guy's name. Toru gently said that you shouldn't think like that about yourself. To him, she's still the same person he knows, and she will stay with her forever. Toru said that in any case, the girl should rest and he should go out. He asked Kaidi to take care of her. The guy left the building. He sadly turned back and walked on. In a city where devastation reigned, repairs began. Toru was walking down the street, where people were actively cleaning up after the fire and the invasion of demons. He passed by and looked around. Men carried logs and found out if others had enough wood. The children were running and playing. Neighboring cities were also ready to share materials with them. They should have shared this news with everyone. Toru looked at them and thought that people are strong. Even after the incident, they do not despair and make plans for the future. The guy wanted her to survive this moment and continue to live. However, if she can't, he's willing to take care of her for the rest of her life. While the guy was walking in thought, he was called out with the words that he had saved them then. A girl with a child stood in front of him. Toru was glad that they were okay. The girl thanked him and said that she now owes him her life. She was really grateful to the guy. Toru just smiled at the girl's words. The knights who were standing nearby also noticed the guy. The knights asked if he was the head of a group of travelers and the hero of the kingdom of Armand, Lord Toru. The guy confirmed the knights' words and thought that he had already forgotten that he had received the title. The knights thanked the guy. They surrounded the guy with the words that he had saved their city from demons. They brought him thanks from all the citizens. The knights began to praise the guy, and Thor awkwardly replied that it was not worth it because he was just passing by. Residents of the city began to notice that the one who saved them was there. Someone confirmed these words, saying that they had personally seen him. The guy was surrounded by residents of the city who began to thank the hero Toru for saving him. Toru awkwardly thought about giving up. Although, to be honest, the guy didn't feel well. Toru asked the residents if they needed help building the city. The residents agreed, but added words that they could not allow the hero to do such things. The guy replied that they should not worry, because if he did not help, his conscience would torment him. The residents agreed, since the guy insists. They asked Toru to help move the wood and stones, because they didn't have enough workers. Toru gladly agreed. A week has passed since then. She looked at the guy and said the words that the guy was cute. Toru, who was peeling an apple, asked the girl why she was doing this. Nei replied that it was just like that. The girl said that the guy was trying to save her, but Toru's kindness was hurting her. The guy handed the peeled apples to the girl and told her just so she knew that he understood her perfectly. Toru explained that he was a burden to them, but Nei was worried about him and persuaded him to stay. Her kindness put pressure on the guy. Nei replied that she had been so short-sighted before and laughed. She apologized and said that she just thought for a minute that they were very similar, which the guy agreed with. Toru added the words that, however, he did not give up, so she should not give up either. The girl remained silent on the guy's words. She put down the bowl and replied to Thor by saying that she was thinking about returning to the village. She wondered if the adventurers were retiring, to which Toru replied in the affirmative. The girl said that her heart was already broken, she was tired of adventures, and she was tired of life. She lowered her head and said the words that she just wanted to live with her parents. She turned to the guy with a request that he give her the best memories before that. Toru was stunned because he immediately realized that the girl wanted to die. The guy grabbed her hand and told her to go. The girl was surprised that they were going somewhere right away. She asked where they were going, to which the guy replied that they were going outside. She objected by saying that she was in her pajamas, which the guy didn't care about. After a while, Toru brought the girl to the servant's shop, where he asked the man to create a contract between him and her, which greatly shocked the girl. The girl asked that if the guy wants to make her a servant, then he will not treat her badly. The guy told her not to worry. The man said that they have strict rules. First, he had to check if the girl had been brainwashed, which Toru agreed with. Nei grabbed the guy by the collar and asked what he was up to. She asked him if Toru was mocking her. Toru looked at the girl in front of him and said the words that she wanted to die, which made her freeze. He said that if the girl didn't want to, he wouldn't force her, but in return, she had to swear to live. Toru asked if he could swear to her. He said he was waiting for an answer, but Nei lowered her head and remained silent. She exclaimed the words that she didn't know because she was in pain. She screamed that she couldn't take it anymore. The girl was crying and talking about wanting to die. Toru asked that if it was because she had no future, then she would be his servant. She exclaimed the question of whether Toru was really a demon, to which the guy replied that she could call it whatever she wanted. He said that if the girl regretted betraying him, then let it be her punishment. As her master, the guy will order her to live. Toru said that this would be enough for him to keep his childhood friend from dying. He said that as he sees it, the guy is not strong and he has no other choice. He apologized to her for that. She hit the guy on the shoulder with the word that he was the worst. She said that Toru is the most terrible guy of all. After a while, she was walking with a smile on her face and laughing. There was a brand on her chest. Toru said that the girl looked happy, to which she was surprised, asking if it was true. The guy told her to remember that she was a servant only formally. If she doesn't like something, then she doesn't have to do it. He said not to act against his will. The girl replied with a smile that she was happy that she was now connected with a guy. Not much, but she was happy. Toru looked at her and asked how the flushing had affected her mind. He asked if he could take her to the doctor. The girl exclaimed the words that the guy knows perfectly well that she is fine. That's how a new comrade appeared in the Toru team. Kaidi happily asked her that maybe they would go out tomorrow. The girl suggested that the others go and buy new clothes for themselves. Toru agreed because Ni stays at home all the time and doesn't go out, so she should unwind. She hesitantly uttered the words that she had a change of clothes. The guy apologized, saying that the clothes were torn, so he threw them away. Ni was about to object to something when Kaidi said that this was agreed. Ni replied that Sain had taken her luggage and money, so she had nothing with her. Toru told the girl not to worry about it. Toru said that although he did not look like a rich man, he had enough money so that the girl could buy everything she needed. Ni was very surprised, but Toru replied that he would not be with the girl forever. After all, the girl wanted to return home later. Toru thought about it and told the girl that since she was his servant, it was okay to take care of her subordinates. She laughed at the guy's words, sarcastically asking how she deserved his kindness. Kaidi also laughed at that. She wanted to make fun of the guy a little. He wanted to be indignant, but the girl asked if Toru didn't want her to call him master. After some time, they went to the city. Toru's team strolled through the streets, saying that the city had recovered quickly. Suddenly, someone called out to the guy with a greeting. The man said that they had a new supply of vegetables. He called the guy with the words that he would give him a discount. Toru replied that he would stop by on his way home. Little girls approached Kaede with an offer to play hide-and-seek again. The girl agreed, but only another time. She said with a smile that the guy was very welcome here. She thought it was all because the residents owed the guy their lives. Toru awkwardly replied that he didn't like to stand out. Frau flew up to the counter with the words that she should try the buns from this shop. She said they were delicious. Toru offered to buy some. After that, the guys went further down the street. The heroes were surrounded by a peaceful and calm atmosphere. Everyone was comfortable. Toru turned to Kaede and said that she was doing well. She was able to take her outside. The girl replied that if she stays at home all the time, she will definitely not get better. She added the words that if anything, they did the same to her. Kaidi explained that it was when she was unsure of herself. She remembered how the guy had told her then, "Is it really so strange that the master cares about the subordinate?" Toru agreed and said the words that in any case, he was very grateful to the girl. Kaidi replied that it was her job to help him. As they walked down the street, the girl continued to say that besides, she was sure that the guy would handle everything. After all, he had saved her and her. Nei walked in front with Frau and Ponte. Toru looked at them with a smile and said the words that Kaidi was right. He hoped that she would be fine. Kaidi said with a smile that since Nei was so important to the guy, then so was she. The girl said she would do her best to help her too. They all headed to the clothing store together, urging each other along the way. After a while, they reached the store. Kaidi and Nei came out to the guy with words of apology for making him wait. Kaidi held her by the shoulder and asked Thor if this outfit suited the girl. Nei said she felt like it wasn't hers at all. However, Toru replied that it suits her very well. Kaidi looked at the guy seriously, and he flinched. Toru gave a thumbs up and exclaimed that she finally looked like a girl, and this is despite the fact that he has known her all his life. She awkwardly thanked the guy and said she was pleased to hear it. Toru said the words that he was not lying. He said that a girl rarely wears such nice clothes, but it really suits her very well. Kaidi looked at the guy hopefully and asked if she could be praised too. A Frau appeared nearby, who also wanted praise. Toru exclaimed that they all looked great. True asked the girls what they would do next, to which Kaidi replied that she would like to go somewhere, if no one minded of course. Toru smilingly told her to lead them. Kaidi happily grabbed her and led her forward. The fox turned out to be stronger than the girl thought. After some time, they came to the oasis pool, where a large number of people were splashing and having fun. Frau, sitting on the pant, shouted that she would be the first. The fairy went into the water, and Toru shouted at her not to jump. Nei noted that the fairy was full of energy as always. Toru awkwardly added the words that she was actually 28 years old and older than all of them. Toru turned to Kaede with words of gratitude for the fact that she picked up his swimming trunks. They were gorgeous. The girl replied that no one else understands her master so well. Kaede turned to the guy and asked if she could ask him something. The guy agreed. The girl picked up the vessel and asked if the guy would apply sunscreen to her. Toru was shocked. Kaede said that she couldn't do it herself, so she asked if the guy would help her. Toru replied that he would be happy to. The girl lay down and said that she needed more on her back, since it was a very open place. Toru said the words that he would try. She was watching this from the sidelines, supporting Kaede. The guy poured a small amount of sunscreen on the girl's body. Kaede mumbled with satisfaction and said the words that it was pleasant. Toru began to rub the cream on the girl's back. Toru was shocked by how soft the girl's skin was. He couldn't figure out how to keep his sanity in such a situation. The guy thought that if you also take into account the words of that dealer in prohibited goods. Then Toru remembered his words when he asked how the servant's contract worked. The man then replied that it was the same as any contract. A guy can order them to do something, and they will do it, but it does not affect their own thoughts and minds. Toru rubbed the cream and thought about what it means that Kaede does such things on purpose all the time, because she wants to. The guy looked closely at the girl's buttocks and thought that if he didn't put anything on them they would probably burn. He held out his hand to the girl, thinking that it was for a good cause. He mentally apologized to Kaede. At the same moment, with a loud cry for the guy not to touch the girl, Nei quickly kicked Thora right in the face. After that, they got up and stood in front of her. The guy thanked her because he almost went crazy. Kaede said the words, "She doesn't mind." Nei exclaimed that there should be no flirting in her presence. The guys decided that it would be better to join Frau, who was playing with Ponte and other girls in the water. Toru and the girls went into the water and started splashing around. They also managed to play volleyball in the water. Nei, coming out of the water, called out to Thora and said that she was tired, so she would go get some rest. Toru asked the girl if everything was okay. She answered him in the affirmative with a smile, so the guy should not worry about her. Toru looked at the girl and agreed. Kaede swam up to Thor, calling out to him. She said that she thought she was still feeling unwell. She asked the guy if he could stay with the girl. Toru replied by saying that Kaede was probably right. He turned around and told the girl that he wasn't leaving these two for her. Kaede thanked the guy. Nei was sitting alone under the awning on a chaise longue, lost in her thoughts. Suddenly, someone came up to her and asked if she wanted a drink. True sat down on a nearby chaise longue and said how hot he was. He said he knew it was warm here, but not that warm. He told the girl that he decided to have a rest too. She agreed with the guy, and added the words that most of all she was glad that everything was fine with Toru. There was silence in the air. The girl spoke first. She said that she had thought of something. Nei told me that Sawara and Lisa were being treated very badly, and they don't understand anything, and they get all the pleasure out of it. The guy was silent and thinking about something. Nei apologized to Toru, saying that she didn't mean it. Toru put his drink on the table and said the words that he had already told her, that she was not to blame for anything. The guy started talking about the fact that the girls are not to blame for their current actions in any way. It's all Sein's fault. Toru was most glad that the girl was alive and was slowly coming back to normal. The guy resolutely said the words that the girl should leave the rest to him because he would personally pay for everything. Toru stood up and held out his hand to her, telling her to forget about everything. He told them to just have fun. The girl looked at the hand and smiled. She agreed with Toru's words and took his hand. The two of them ran back to the others. It's been a whole week. The guys returned to Armand. Toru asked if it was definitely not necessary to accompany the girl to the village. Nei replied that it was enough that he escorted her to Armand, and also provided a carriage with an escort. The knights exclaimed that since she was a friend of Lord Toru, they would protect her with their lives. The guy said he was counting on them. The girl asked Toru about how it happened that he and his band became the hero of this country. The guy replied with words that it just happened that way. He asked her a question about what she was going to do when she arrived in the village. The girl thought for a while and then replied that she would help her parents with the housework. She explained to the guy that over time everything would be forgotten and she would finally feel better. Toru was very glad to hear these words. The girl said the words that it was time to say goodbye, which the guy agreed to. Behind him, Panta was barely holding back tears. Nei turned to Frau and Ponte, shaking hands with the fairy, saying that the opportunity to see the fairy, and even more so to make friends with her, is unforgettable for her. The girl thanked them for cheering her on all this time. Frau wished the girl good luck, and Ponta whined sadly. Nei turned to Kaida with gratitude for the fact that the girl had been taking care of her all this time, but she would go further on her own. Kaidi returned the thanks with a smile. Suddenly, Nei came up to Kaida and tried to whisper something in her ear. The fox tilted slightly to hear. Nei asked the girl to take care of Toru. She said that the guy is a little cruel and uncommunicative, but he is a very nice guy. Kaidi nodded with a smile on her face and answered the words that the girl could not worry about it. Nei turned to Thor and called his name. The guy was silent for a while and then said he would ask again. He asked the girl if she would like to join them because they would be glad to see her. Nei replied to Thor that it was a good offer, but she didn't deserve to be with them. The girl added words that besides, she had already made a decision for herself a long time ago. The guy with a slight smile replied to the girl that, who knows, apparently nothing can be done. Well, okay. Suddenly, Nei grabbed the guy by the sleeve and called his name. With tears in her eyes, she asked Sora to help, because the girl is already beginning to bother the guy. Nei thought that Sain would get rid of her soon. Toru put his hands on the girl's shoulders and replied that he would help. The guy paused, and then asked about Lisa. Nei hesitated and replied that although the guy could break Sain's curse, the girl was afraid that Lisa would not be able to withstand those memories. Toru frowned and replied with words about what he understood. She called out the guy's name and asked if he still loved Lisa. Toru said nothing, and Kaidi looked attentively at the guy, who was deep in thought. The guy said the words that he didn't know. He told me that he used to love, but now he doesn't know. Nei replied that if so, it was good, because she was sure that Thor would be in a lot of pain. Toru frowned at the girl's words, because he thought that maybe she was right. However, he still wanted to help the girls. She looked at the guy and said the words that she was counting on him because he was the only one who could help them. The guy replied that she knew. Toru said that as her best friend and their best friend, he would help the girls, as he had helped her. They bumped fists, and then she got into the cart and set off. Toru's team watched their new friend leave. Nei sat quietly in the cart, and then suddenly got up and began waving to the guys behind her with a smile. She shouted goodbye to Thor and the girls. Toru, Kaide, Frau, and Ponte waved back at the departing girl with wide smiles on their faces. They shouted the words that they would definitely see each other again, so the cart slowly disappeared over the horizon, leaving the guys alone on the road. And the journey of Toru and his group continues.